talking about specifically, though, is this South Carolina situation. It's saying there was no such dispute there. The only dispute was as follows. Democrats felt that the law, even though there was no claim that their candidate won the popular vote in the state, they felt that the laws disenfranchised certain voters. Therefore, their side should have been legitimately declared the winner because the law didn't allow the proper votes to be cast. That's remarkably similar to the claims that are being made by Trump's team, that they're saying it is our belief that the way that voting occurred was fraudulent or things occurred that were unacceptable, and so we are going to put forth an alternate slate of electors that will force these things to be looked at. I assume that was the Democrats' goal here in 1876. Their goal was, look, we want it looked at whether or not these particular type of voting laws should have been enacted and what that would have meant then. Would that have tilted the balance for one state to another? Now, I don't know. In the 1870s, Democrats, maybe the laws they're suggesting, I'm just guessing, are that people of certain colors that were former slaves or something like that voted, and perhaps they shouldn't have been allowed to vote. I'm not sure, but it sounds like they're saying that the laws on the books that determined who could vote or how votes were counted were illegitimate, and thus they put forth an alternate slate of react. Can you tell me why that wouldn't be a coup?
Okay, I guess, so maybe I can agree with you there, but I think, like, if you walked me through all of these, and if I agreed with you on every single point here, then I would just return to my earlier argument then, I would say, well, this is kind of like an attempted coup then.
Right.
Would I be incorrect there, or?
Well, no,
let's say that I agree at every point that, like, okay, well, they knew that they shouldn't have done this. They knew that they were lying the whole time. They knew that they were submitting false electors, and they knew they didn't have the authority to do this. Then I would say, you're basically breaking as many norms or rules as you possibly can to entrench your party's leadership for as long as possible. I would say that that's essentially like a coup. You're preventing the peaceful transfer of power.
Okay, well then the question would be, why were those coups that occurred, and these aren't the only examples, I haven't read in depth, but I know in 1960 in Hawaii there was an alternate slate of electors. In addition to that, when Trump won in 2016, there were Democrats that still are serving in Congress that suggested alternate slates of electors or not certifying the election. The question then becomes, why was the remedy for all of those people not to criminally charge those that were deemed alternate electors, not to boot out of office or criminally charge the people that were in office that suggested or attempted to do those alternate slate of electors? According to you, these would all be coups.
Wait, hold on. I don't know why, but you can't seriously purport that since somebody wasn't charged, we couldn't consider this like a coup attempt.
Well, I can when it comes to why this matters, right? Because the reason that this would matter to me is the obvious double standard. That when this occurred over and over again in the past, I don't really give a shit what you, a prominent streamer Destiny, calls something. I don't give a shit. What I care about is what our legal system does in response to it. And when
did people at the time think this was an attempted coup? Were people at the time incredibly irritated?
I can't speak for 1867. I could say that when people in 2016, Democrats suggested not certifying the results or alternate electors, no, it was not considered a coup.
At the end here, but even this apparent criminality did not result in prosecutions and convictions of the perpetrators, but instead caused Tilden's political disgrace, preventing him from returning as the Democratic Party's presidential nominee in 1880, as had been his plan immediately after Hayes was inaugurated. So maybe most people at the time thought this was basically like, yeah, you were doing something illegal, you were trying to rig the election, it was an attempted coup.
That's fine. Then the remedy should be the same. The Republican Party could say that Trump is a disgrace and not nominate him. That's different than criminally charging him, criminally charging the people that were deemed alternate electors, and then unilaterally.
We haven't even gotten to the criminal charging part yet. And also, what's happened here is not as severe as what happened in what Trump attempted, I don't think, because Trump is working in contravention of an actual law, and here they were definitely violating the spirit of the Constitution, but the Electoral Commission, Congress literally created the Electoral Commission to settle this exact dispute.
Well, fair enough. But the question, so you could say then the legal ramifications this time would be differently. But how do you handle then, I'm just saying that you would have to, by your own logic, consider these coups. And then how would you consider the time it was used, like in 1960 in Hawaii? That's clearly after the 1887 law. Or
we can look at 1960. Well, we don't have to go over. We can just do, so 1960
Sure.
Hawaii, 1960 Hawaii, multiple electors. Okay.
This is what I'm reading of it. The Hawaii
The
election.
election, or I'm just reading the, I'm just looking at the wiki here.
Okay,
The election and the subsequent recount are notable for giving rise to the first occurrence of dueling electoral slates in American history since the 1887 enactment of the Electoral Count Act. During the 2000 United States presidential election recount in Florida, Congresswoman Patsy Mink suggested that the election could serve as a potential precedent to extend Vice President Al Gore's challenge to the official results beyond the Electoral Count Act's safe harbor deadline, though this was ultimately not acted upon. During the attempts to overturn the 2020 United States presidential election, the election was cited as a potential precedent by supporters of President Donald Trump, despite important differences, including the fact that the Hawaiian Democratic slate was certified by Governor Quinn. Even if the recounts in Hawaii succeeded in giving Nixon the state, Kennedy would still have won the presidency with 300 electoral votes to Nixon's 222.
Well, that's irrelevant.
So recount.
I'll just read what I'm reading here, right?
Okay.
It says the Hawaii election was initially resulted in a narrow 140 vote victory for then Vice President Nixon. The margin was close enough for the court to order a recount, which was still going on December 19th, the deadline for presidential electors to meet and cast their ballot. The outcome of the recount would not affect the overall outcome of the race, already handily secured by John Kennedy. Still, Nixon's Hawaii electors happily abided by their duty to meet and cast their votes. This didn't stop Kennedy's Hawaii electors from casting their own votes for their candidate, despite Kennedy's initial defeat and the results of the recount pending. The recount ultimately reversed the state's results, awarding Kennedy an even narrower 115-vote win. The Kennedy electors subsequently reconvened to sign a new set of certifying documents, which Governor Bill Quint transmitted to Washington. In his duties as vice president, Nixon accepted the third and final count. While the attorneys for Georgia's defendants claim Hawaii case serves as a viable precedent, essentially upholding their assertion that the act of convening alternate electives is not itself illegal, Fulton County Attorney Fannie Willis rejected the assertion in a brief submitted to Fulton County Court, which is set to hear. In the brief, Willis summarily dismissed the comparison between the action of Georgia defendants and actions that did not result in prosecution 60 years ago in a different jurisdiction with different election code and criminal statutes. Willis highlighted crucial differences in the two cases so readily distinguishable. The differences are some she cited in 60 by December 19th, the date when Hawaii electors met. The Republican slate of electors had been certified by the governor based on the initial tally of votes, but due to the close margin of less than 150 vote, an official recount was ongoing. In the present case, when the defendant Latham and other fraudulent electors met, two recounts had already been completed, each of which confirmed a margin of victory for then candidate Biden. So the argument is...
Wait, hold on. So real quick on this. So for the Hawaii thing, so it sounds like there was one set of electors that transmitted their thing because of what the vote was, and then a second set transmitted theirs because of an ongoing recount. I mean, I would argue that the unofficial guy shouldn't have done it, but the precedence here for them transmitting two sets is a lot stronger than for whatever the fuck Trump's legal theory is, right? Because these guys' theory was that like there's a recount of like 140 vote difference and it could flip, and it did flip. But Trump's theory is that there's like unprecedented widespread like rigging they've already lost in the courts and they've already exhausted their legal challenges through. So what I don't understand like how these things are even comparable. I would say here they shouldn't have transmitted the second set. I think that was inappropriate, but definitely not comparable to Trump asking Pence to unilaterally throw it, or to a state. I'm sorry, you're not making that comparison. Or to a state just deciding to have a second set of electors who don't like the results of the first election.
So what I would say is that I think that you're definitely right, that there's a stronger case in the Hawaii 1960 than there is, because the idea of an official recount going seems to buttress against, right? So I can see that, like I really do. However, I still think on the grounds of the legality that it would still be, if it's illegal for alternate electors in Trump's case, on paper, the law is the same. And if the law says by this date, the official certified government electors have to be put forth, I think having alternate electors would be illegal in the same way that it would be legal for Trump's team. Even if you say, but I deem their actions to be more reasonable. Like the reasonability of it doesn't seem to affect whether or not the letter of the law is followed, correct?
Well, I think the intention is the really important part here.
Well, there's the rub. So by intention, what do you mean? So the intention
the intention of the electors, like they can see that there's a recount. That's all the recounts for the presidential election were done before Pence and the certification ever happened. For here, the recount is still ongoing. Like I said, I don't think the second set of electors should have been transmitted. I don't know if there's ever been a case where the recount was ongoing, like when the votes needed to be counted, or if this is like a one-off thing. Because this was saying that the recount was still ongoing on December 19th, the day specified in U.S. law for the casting of votes by the members of the Electoral College. Yeah, I mean, like clearly they shouldn't be transmitting, but like this is like a coin toss after the recount for who's actually going to win.
But again,
Yeah, and also right after the recount was done, apparently the governor shipped the letter to the fucking Congress and literally said, "Hey, like go ahead and toss the other one. Like we finished the recount. Like here's the actual thing."
So again, what I'll say though is that by the letter of the law, they shouldn't be allowed to do this. And if you say, but the intent matters, fair enough. But then to me, it comes
Well, but hold on, but real quick, by the letter of the law, they were supposed to have their recount done by December 19th, but they hadn't. So what do you do past this point? Do they just don't get any electoral college votes, or?
I would say that you're not allowed to have an alternate slate of electors. You could have had some sort of remediation where you go to the governor and go to the courts in Hawaii and say, like, look, the governor can't sign off on the official slate of electors until this official recount's done. I don't think that you, as an elector, get to unilaterally be like, fuck all that. We're going to cast our slate of alternate electors. That seems to not go to the courts. That seems to be subverting the court and taking unilateral action, correct?
Sure. Yeah, so this would probably be inappropriate, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, like, the goal here is not to flip an election. I don't think anybody here is necessarily acting in bad faith to work in contravention to the will of the Hawaiian people, right? Because again, this is 114 or 141 vote victory, so the recount is on either side here. Also, what you're describing, I think, is basically what happened in 2000, right? Wasn't there an actual stalling of the Florida shit because they were trying to recount?
I believe that's true. I off the top of my head, I can't. But yeah. But again, right, it's the idea of taking, when you say intent, I understand what you really mean. It's maybe not the word intent's not the best to sum it up. What you really mean is their case is far stronger of saying like, wait. It's not just our fucking shoddy belief that something shady happened. We literally have an official recount going. So that when you say intent, because intent, I think that you're just fundamentally wrong that Trump and others didn't legitimately believe the election was stolen. Not only do
here's a quick question on that, and then we can move to this immediately if you want.
Okay.
Here's a quick question. Let's say that if you could put a probe into Donald Trump and everybody else's mind, and they knew that there was no election fraud, would you say then, okay, well, this was an attempted coup? If he is asking him to toss these things and he knows that there's not election fraud.
If Donald Trump, like if somehow we had some sort of alien technology that we could literally 100% see that Donald Trump knew, yeah, I know I lost, I know there was no fraud, and he still did this, would that be a coup?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
I think that if Trump intentionally is seeking ways to subvert what he knows were the legitimate results in an attempt to vainly stay in power, I think, yes, I would consider that my definition of a coup. I do not think that's remotely what happened. I think not only did Donald Trump believe in 2020 that the election was stolen from him, I think he believes it to this day. I think he absolutely 100% believes it.
Sure. So then can we go through, like, what are any pieces of evidence whatsoever that you would have that shows that Donald Trump legitimately thinks that he's lost the election? Or, I'm sorry, legitimately thinks that the election was rigged and he shouldn't have lost the election.
Can I do one more quick thing on the previous subject, and then I'm happy? Like, so those were results that we have. There are other times that alternate electors were used. But famously in 2016, we had several Democrat electors that signed on against the rules to be alternate electors, basically to subvert Donald Trump. Would you admit that those Democrat electors engaged in a coup and should be prosecuted?
Wait, say that one more time.
We had in 2016, for example, I'm looking at a Politico article, Democrat presidential electors revolt against Trump. At least half a dozen Democrat electors have signed on to an attempt to block Donald Trump from winning the Electoral College majority, an effort designed not only to deny Trump the presidency, but also to undermine the legitimacy of the institution. The presidential electors, mostly former Bernie Sanders supporters who hail from Washington state and Colorado, are now lobbying their Republican counterparts in other states to reject their oaths and in some cases state law to vote against Trump when the Electoral College meets on December 19th. Even the most optimistic among Democrat electors acknowledges they're unlikely to persuade the necessary 37 Republican electors to reject Trump, the number they'd likely to need to deny the presidency. And even if they do, Republican House will simply elect Trump anyways. But the Democrat electors are convinced, even in defeat, their efforts would erode confidence in the Electoral College and fuel efforts to eliminate it. Ending the body's 228-year run is the only official constitutional process for electing the president. Would you admit that that was a coup by those people and they should have been criminally charged?
I don't know if, like, is it even, like, illegal to coup? I don't even know what the fuck, if that's, like, an illegal thing.
Well, I mean,
in terms of, like, U.S. code.
What are
like,
they charging Trump with? They're not charging him with coup.
I believe they're charging Trump. His charge is committing fraud against the American public with respect to their vote.
Okay.
I can check.
Well, that
January 6th, D.C. indictment Trump.
That would seem.
I believe it.
Do you mind if I grab a drink real quick? It'll just be 10 seconds. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
Oh, this is it. I need to stop saying this fraud. These are the actual charges.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. You there?
Yeah, okay. So to be clear, the charges against Trump are conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, conspiracy of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. Those are what he's being charged with.
Okay, so skip the two in the center. That's just obstruction of justice. So conspiracy against rights and conspiracy to defraud basically the electors, people of the United States.
I guess basically, yeah.
Without delving too deeply in the law, it seems like intentionally subverting the will of the voters because you're pissed about the electoral college system would meet that criteria.
Okay, I would have to see specifically what those electors said, but I mean, like, if anybody's talking about being faithless electors, I'm always going to be against those people. Always.
Well, right, being against, and again, I say the same thing. I think that, I believe that.
Well, no, hold on. You don't say the same thing.
Sure.
I would say, yeah, those people were essentially trying to coup the government, and you won't say that. So we don't say the same thing.
I don't think that's necessarily a coup. In fact, I would specifically say in this case that wasn't a coup. Well, I don't know if my argument holds up that I was going to say there, because even if they would have went through with it, it still would have resulted in Trump being president, because it would have went to the states and the states would. So in that case, it was clearly that they didn't believe that this would legitimately keep Trump out of office. They thought this could lead to a change in systems that in future elections could benefit us.
I still don't like it.
I certainly
don't. Not voting along with what you're probably supposed to. Like, I think faithless electors are, I don't know if I call it coup, but whatever the fuck, like, this subverting of the process of voting, I think is some of the worst things you can do. Whatever it is.
Let me be clear. I completely agree that what Trump asked Pence to do was the wrong thing. I think Trump was right in that there were significant questions about the election that needed to resolve that still haven't been resolved in many cases. But I think he was wrong in his attempt to do it. The problem with Donald Trump is that he identified correctly that there was a swamp and that there were people that were corrupted. I could talk at great length about these institutions that were corrupt. But he waited too long to do anything about it. You can't do it. And listen, and to any Trump supporter out there, and I've argued with Trump supporters that say, no, Pence shouldn't have done this. All I could say is, okay, if Trump wins in 2024 and Kamala Harris says, you know what, never mind, we're going to delay this shit until we look at things in the way we want to look, what will you be saying? You will be fucking livid. That doesn't mean that it rises the level of like criminal conspiracy or keeping people off of. I don't think it would. I think that there is more harmful coups that have been done that actually did rise to the level of criminality, such as the FBI illegally spying on Trump's campaign based on knowing.
Okay, hold on, we're not what about it.
Right, I'm not what about it, but
I'm trying to stay on this.
The idea, it's not. I'm just saying those things I've legitimately called a coup, but I'm not. I never called the electors in 2016 a coup. I didn't, right? Like, I didn't say that the people that did that were engaged in a coup. And even if I did use that language, the important part is I never called for them to be arrested, right? Who gives a fuck what word I use?
Okay, gotcha. Okay, all this is ejecting this. Don't care. Okay, so what do we think for Trump intentionally, or I'm sorry, why do we believe that Trump knew or had good reason to believe that the elections had been rigged against him? Let's try to figure out a state of mind. Why do we think he actually thought the election was rigged?
Okay, so there is a host of specific things in different states that he could have felt. So, for example, let's take my state of Pennsylvania. In my state of Pennsylvania, the laws massively changed in how we did votes. And there were all sorts of questions. For example, one of the changes had to do with whether or not your signature on your voter registration had to match your mail-in ballot signature. And there was going to be obvious legal questions that were brought about this to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So on election night, I'm covering the election with journalists in Pennsylvania, and the people in the different districts were instructed to keep separate piles of ballots for the ballots that would be, ones that the signatures didn't verify, ones that were received after the deadline, and things like that. And most of those just got mixed together. And the courts were like, well, we can't really decide, right? And so, for example, in Pennsylvania, there was a court decision, I don't know if it's been overruled or if it's still going to be heard, that said it was against the Pennsylvania state constitution to allow mail-in voting the way it happened. That court decision was won, that the way that the 2020 election was proffered was illegal, was against the United States Constitution. So okay, hold on.
Can we walk through, we're going to walk through these.
Sure.
Can we find the Pennsylvania decision? Pennsylvania court decision, Trump president. Donald Trump versus for president, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Donald J. Trump for President, Inc. versus Bucks County Board of Elections is a lawsuit filed by the Trump campaign and others in the Pennsylvania Court of Common Pleas on November 9th, 2020. The plaintiffs appealed the decision of the board to count over 2,200 ballots that lacked a date or voter address or were not sealed with secrecy sleeves, claiming the votes are invalid. The lawyers for the Trump campaign have signed an agreement that they do not allege and that there is no evidence of any fraud in connection with the challenged ballots. They also declared that they were not alleging votes from dead people, misconduct, or impropriety related to those ballots and had no evidence of such happenings. Judge Robert Obaldi denied the plaintiff's petition and ordered all ballots to be counted. The Trump campaign appealed the decision on November 25th. The Commonwealth Court also ruled that all ballots should be counted. The Trump campaign filed an emergency petition in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court asking for review of the case, and on December 8th, the court denied the petition for appeal. Is this the Pennsylvania case we're talking about?
No.
Or another?
So what I'm talking about is, so this article's from Spotlight, PA, from January 29, 2022. A court just struck down...
Wait, can you link me?
Yeah. Just I'll send it to your DMs in Discord there. 1 second.
Okay.
I'm a boomer, so it takes me a minute here. Let's see. All right. It should have sent to you. So... Court just struck down Pennsylvania's mail voting law. Here's what you need to know. This is Spotlight, PA, January 29th, 2022. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania's mail voting law, known as Act 77, was ruled unconstitutional Friday by a state court after a challenge brought by Republicans, but it will remain in place for the time being, and the Wolf administration pursues an appeal to the Supreme Court. Here's what you need to know about the decision. So this was in January of 2022. So there were legitimate questions about the legality of the way that the voting changes occurred in Pennsylvania. So much so that the idea that this was all resolved by January 6, 2020 is laughable, seeing as how when it was finally had its day in court, it actually was ruled to be illegal. Now, full disclosure, I believe in August of that same year, the Supreme Court overruled this court decision. But the idea that this was resolved is nonsensical. It wasn't. There were legitimate questions, so much so that at least a lower court initially ruled that, yes, these votes shouldn't have counted. And clearly, if those mail-in votes don't count in Pennsylvania, Trump wins Pennsylvania going away.
The Constitution currently states that voters have to cast ballots at a polling place within their district. Absentee ballots can be cast by voters who are unable to appear in person because of business or occupation, or unable, given that it has been necessary in the past to amend the Constitution to specifically state who can vote absentee. The 3 judges found no excuse. Mail-in voting would also require an amendment. Would Pennsylvania flipping on its own have been enough to reverse the entire election?
I don't believe. I believe he would have needed one more state.
Yeah, because I thought he needed a few more than that.
But nonetheless, if Trump, so you could say, would you concede at least under this metric, even a court ruled eventually that there could have been reason in Trump's head to believe that he won Pennsylvania on the date of January 6, 2020?
That's possible.
Okay.
But if that was the case, then Trump should have been stating only this instead of the 50 million other stolen ballot boxes, suitcase of ballots, dead voters, et cetera, that he continued to rely on that he had no reason to believe were true. Well, if Trump had been repeating just this case the entire time, in fact, I'm not even sure if Trump ever mentions this, although I'd be interested, maybe he did. If Trump was only repeating this, then maybe I would lend a little bit more, it would lend more credence that he was acting in good faith. But that doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, no. Because let's be clear, right? Like, Trump's allowed to, if Trump thinks that the election was stolen from him in 50,000 different ways, he's absolutely within his rights to say so if he legitimately believes that. The fact that
the question is proving if he legitimately believes that, though. The issue with Trump is that he's stating so many falsehoods that he's been informed on over and over again are false.
That's not true. He's been told they're false by certain people, but other people are not telling him that that's false. He's been told they're false by every single person in his circle. The only people that are saying other things are outside parties that will approach him, that he continually goes to his inner circle over and over again and say, hey, do you think this is true? And them saying no over and over again. Okay, let me take a different tactic then, right? Let's say you're right. Let's say that of the 500 things, hypothetically, Trump said 500 things, and clearly we could easily dispense with 490 of them. They're all bullshit. But if the other 10 are legitimate and it would have changed the results of the election, would it matter that he spewed the 490 false ones?
Yes, because it's showing that he's not acting in good faith. The intent here is to just defraud the American public.
Completely.
If he was only leaning in on 5 or 6 theories that like were somewhat sound, then we'd be having a totally different conversation. It's the fact that he was spreading 500 plus conspiracy theories that his inner circle were telling him over and over again weren't true. If a couple of these happen to be true, I mean, he spread so many false ones. Clearly, truth is not what he's after here. He's just trying to do whatever he can to hold on to power.
I completely disagree. I think that, first off, I don't believe just because even if people in his camp told him, look, there's no evidence of this, we don't see it, that doesn't mean that Trump thought, oh, okay, then I obviously know it's not true. He would have thought, you're not looking hard enough. Clearly, the evidence is there. I heard this person say this. And you might say that makes Trump a fucking idiot if he's listening to the My Pillow guy over Bill Barr.
Okay, in that case, then in that case, in every single criminal conviction into the perpetuity, into all the rest of humankind or whatever, as long as somebody is telling you that something might be possible, you can no longer ever be acting in bad faith or with ill intent. As long as there's somebody telling you that something might be possible. Is that the argument you're going with?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying in crimes that require intent, the threshold is immensely upon the person that is claiming to know the intent of the person. And merely stating, well, we know his intent because this guy told him something, is not true. If other people were telling him...
It's not that this guy told him, it's that every single person in his immediate circle and every single person that was in his campaign, that was in the White House, that he was working with, was telling him this is bullshit, this is bullshit. And the only theories that he had to rest on were outside people coming like, hey, Trump, like, check out this shit. Like, maybe this could, like, be the thing. And then he goes to his inner circle, like, hey, could this be a thing? And they're like, no, it's not. We've looked into it. And then he continues to propagate that. Yeah, I think any reasonable mind would look at that and say, oh, obviously his intention was to lie.
Listen, I don't believe your claim that every single person in his inner circle said. I think that's an over-exaggeration. And I think the greater point is that if there was legitimate reasons, and like, for example, the narrative you heard and the narrative you said, whether you intended to or not, was all of these cases were bullshit. It was all bullshit. He didn't. I just showed you one in Pennsylvania you were unaware of.
Well, but it got overturned. He lost.
And nonetheless, the question of his intent, he clearly had reason to believe that this could be a legitimate gripe, seeing as how a court agreed with that in 2022. So the
a full conservative court agreed on a 3-2 ruling that would later get reversed by a Supreme Court that is a 6-3 conservative court. I mean, like...
No, wait a minute. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court's conservative? No.
I thought I read that. I thought it said in the article.
Unless it wasn't the Supreme Court that overturned. Maybe it was the Superior Court. But the Supreme Court, I'm pretty sure in Pennsylvania, even prior to these most recent election, I'm pretty certain is Democrat controlled.
Oh, sorry. I thought I read conservative after that.
Nonetheless, it's irrelevant anyways, right? To the point of whether or not there was a credible reason for him to believe. If your argument,
sure, but again, like but the test here would be: is he putting out this theory over and over and over again, or is he putting out other bullshit theories?
It doesn't matter, and this is why. Because the argument is right. He absolutely 100% without a doubt knew that the election wasn't rigged. That's bullshit. He still to this day believes it's rigged. And you said, well, give me an example of sort of the type of thing that Trump could have been looking at thinking this election was taken from you. I gave you one, the way that the election laws were changed in Pennsylvania in 2022. A court ruled that was unconstitutional. A higher court ruled that overturned it. But nonetheless, even in 2022, there were significant legal theories and challenges with competent lawyers on both sides arguing whether or not this mass changing to voting was legal based on the Pennsylvania state constitution. And what I was going to do is go through it. You said, well, that's just one state, Pennsylvania. Okay, we could go to Georgia. We could go to Arizona. We could go to Wisconsin.
So here's a question, just so I can understand because then we don't have to bother with the rest. So if somebody makes 100 claims and 98 of them are completely bold-faced false and he has no reason to believe they're true and everyone around is saying they're false and 2 of them might be legitimate, you would say that, well, this person's acting in good faith because the 2 were legitimate? Is that your argument?
The idea of good faith is sort of...
I need you to... Yeah, you got to...
No, that is not my argument. My argument is that Donald Trump absolutely believes that the election was stolen from him, and that made him gullible because... This is going to give me 30 seconds, please, to expound. The truth is that I agree that in certain ways the election was stolen, probably not in the ways that Trump thinks. But even if there was fraud... 99 out of 100 claims that you hear are going to be false. In other words, if we could say that the 2024 election, if we could look and we could be clairvoyant and we could say, yep, absolutely, in these 3 states there were fraud, the wrong person won because of that. But we were forced to stay silent. 99 out of 100 of the claims that would come out as a result after 2024 would be wrong. That's just the nature of how it's going to be. So Trump legitimately thinking that it was stolen and having good reason to have questions in certain cases is gullible enough because of that and because of the treatment that he's received. The reason that he had a propensity to believe it was stolen in the first place was because of the corrupt treatment that had been given to him over and over and over.
Do you agree that by whatever amendment rules somebody like mentally incompetent to stand office, you agree Trump should never be allowed to hold office if he's this gullible? Do you agree with that?
No, not at all.
I don't understand this Republican go-to argument of like Trump was bullied and so he tried to coup the government.
If the FBI, if you're running for office, right, and the FBI and a bunch of other institutions illegally and unlawfully spy on you in unprecedented ways that have never occurred, and then you think that you have these people telling you like, holy shit, like all these ballots are coming in and they look like they were digitally made and the paper size wasn't the correct paper and the machines were hooked up to the internet and they're not supposed to be, and you're like, wow, this sounds fun. And they stopped counting in the middle of the night, and then all of a sudden a batch of ballots came in.
Every single one of these claims were validated or were investigated, and almost every single one of these claims was not true.
Well, that's
Trump
not
was
true.
Saying that the election was going to be fraudulent a year before it even happened. He started saying it was going to be rigged.
So was
How
Hillary's.
is this not like
so was Hillary's
every single not in this way.
Oh, I'm sorry. So was Biden's. Of course they were. In fact, there was Democratic talking points that came out that said that if Trump won, that it would be an illegitimate election, just like they said it was illegitimate in 2016.
That's not even remotely the same. And
sure
I know that we all love to go to that one Hillary Clinton quote that she said in the one interview about him being illegitimate because he had help from Russia. That is a fundamentally different claim than the claim that Trump's team is making about the big lie that there was a top-down conspiracy to rig the votes in almost every single state in order to give Biden the win. These are two completely different claims.
I don't know that. Is that the claim? Can you show me Trump suggesting that?
Suggesting that, that all of these ballot boxes, that these were being rigged across the entire United States. Yeah, across several states, across hundreds of districts. Yeah, that's the claim.
What I heard was suggesting was that there was legitimate fraud or illegalities that occurred in swing states in an election that was decided by basically 3 states and 44,000 votes. That's what I heard. Now, you might have said...
Hold on, wait. So you didn't hear Trump saying over and over again things like illegal ballot boxes are being counted. They brought a suitcase of ballots in. There's 5,000 dead voters. Those are the claims that Trump was making over and over and over again.
Sure, right? Where at?
Okay.
Like, that's different than saying every single state. What you just said. So, for example, Trump won how many states? And your argument is that Trump's argument, what he's out there saying is, even in the states I won, in every single state, every leader, there was a top-down movement to steal the election. No, I've never heard him say that.
No, of course not. Why would you want to contend the states that you've won in?
Right. So then your argument seems to be hyperbolic, where you're saying Trump came out and said, every single state, there's a top-down. No, he never said that. That's what I'm saying. He's saying in the states.
Okay, my bad. Hold on. You're hyper-focusing on the dumbest part of my statement. My bad. So I'm sorry. Not in every single state, but in every single state that he lost, there was a top-down conspiracy, whether it was through the courts, through Democrats, through illegal vote boxes, through dumps of votes, through dead voters, et cetera, et cetera. He was alleging a conspiracy.
I think, even that I think is hyperbolic. I don't think he said in every state, for example, in deep blue states, that he really won. Though he's dumb enough.
In the states that he lost, in the states that he needed to win the election.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. He's saying in these swing states, right, where there were people in positions of prominence that didn't like him, particularly in states that had blue governors or something like that, or in cities where the elections were ran that were deep blue, like in Fulton County, for example. He's saying that he sees anomalies that suggested that there was a swinging of the votes to ensure that he didn't win, right? Now, I've already conceded to you that I believe that 9 out of every, even if we could see that the election was stolen from Trump, that still 9 out of every 10 of the claims would be bullshit. For example, on my channel, I can't tell you immediately after the election how many days I spent fighting with right-wingers that were saying absurd shit like, more people voted in the state of Wisconsin than there were voters registered. That's a bullshit claim that was easy to look into almost immediately and say, no, that's not true if you go to the official, right? So most of the claims you're hearing are bullshit. Trump's gullible enough because in his heart of hearts, he sees how he's been mistreated over and over, and he's seeing things that he thinks are indicative of, well, now we've massively changed the way we vote. And we have mail-in drop-off boxes where all of a sudden the cameras went out. And we have hundreds of thousands of ballots in Georgia where the chain of custody just happened to be missing, right? Like all of these things he's seeing over and over, and he's saying, fuck this. I was cheated. They stopped counting in the middle of the night Batches are coming in that are 99.8% Biden. I won almost every bellwether that predicts who wins the presidency in the past, but for some reason they were wrong this time. Like, he's absolutely... Now, that's not proof that the election was stolen. That's not what I'm suggesting. But that's enough to reason to believe that Trump thought that it was stolen from him, which is the question that you're posing.
Don't you think that, like, not to appeal to Occam's razor, isn't it so much simpler to just assume that Trump wanted to hold on to power by any means necessary? And if I give you that statement, it describes literally every single action that Trump has taken in the past, like, 8 years or whatever to try to, like, win back the election or hold on to power. Doesn't it explain literally every single thing? For instance, can you find me a single action that would be incongruent with that statement?
Yes. Would you like to hear some?
Yeah, one at a time. Don't just one
all
at a
right,
time.
let's give you an easy one. He starts a war right before the election and then declares, because we're in a serious war, that he can't be removed from power like Zelensky.
How does that not prove what I just said?
No, what I'm saying, if your argument is, by any means necessary, he would have stayed in power, surely he had to see that the election was going to at least be close. So if your claim is this, he was going to stay in power by any means necessary, he knows the election's going to be close, but he decides he'll take his chances with the election and then come out and whine, and somehow that whining will keep him in power, versus if truly his agenda was to stay in power by any means necessary, before the election, he would have started a war with someone like China, and then said, oh, now that we're in a serious war that might branch into a world war, I have to maintain my position as head of the military, and
hold on. So your argument is that because Trump didn't start World War III, he must not have been doing everything he could to hold on to power?
I'm saying you asked me to provide a scenario where it would have been...
I'm asking if there's an action that he did, not like the 50 billion hypothetical actions. Is there an action he did that's incongruent with him just wanting to hold on to power?
Well, couldn't you say that about... Yeah, he left office eventually.
Okay, that's...
I mean, couldn't you say that about... Like, don't you think, hypothetically, that Joe Biden, if he loses, will want to hold on to power? Yeah, in his heart of hearts, he would like to stay. Right?
No,
of course.
I think that if Joe Biden lost the election, just like Hillary Clinton, I think that he would concede that night. He wouldn't go on TV like Donald Trump did and try to claim that he won the election despite every single person around him telling him not to say that, and having to have his own vice president go on camera and say, we're actually going to go ahead and wait for the votes to be finished counting before we try to say that we won the election. I don't know what the fuck my president is saying right now. That's a circumstance, for instance, that's easily explained by Trump just wanting to do whatever he can to hold on to power. Trump saying, stop the count. Why do you think he said stop the count? Do you think it was him trying to genuinely ensure that the democratic process is being followed, or do you just want to hold on to power?
I think he was saying, like many people thought, that there would be fraudulent counts that came in to tip the balance for Biden at the end of the night, as it seems to suggest that's what happened. Now,
but literally every single person knew this was going to happen, Trump and Trump's team included, that mail-in ballots were going to heavily favor Democrats, that like Bernie Sanders was literally talking about the exact states that would switch on TV like a week before. Everybody knew this was going to happen.
That might be true, but is it to the level it happened? Let me ask you this. If you were going to steal the election, wouldn't the easiest way to do it be to do it in ways that you've told people would look like exactly how it would look like?
Oh my God, Rob, this is like an all roads lead to Rome fallacy. Like in that case, if they would have done it in a way that none of us would have known, then you would say, well, of course they were hiding it the whole time. But if they do it in a way they're going to say they're going to do it, well, wouldn't you try to do it in the way that you were going to say? No, I don't think you would try to do it in the way you were going to say you would do it, because you'd probably get caught. What do you mean? No, you have you have more scrutiny of the election probably than any election in all of modern history. Why would you tell people how you're going to rig it ahead of time?
It's absolutely bullshit, and you could see from the sort of reaction that they've had that's bullshit. For example, they said, and I'm quoting, "You were told that not only was there not enough fraud to sway the election in a election season where we massively changed how we voted, by the way, to a less secure method in mail-in voting in many states, but not only was there not enough fraud to tip, but it was, and I'm quoting now, the most secure election ever." That is the official statement from the same people that you were saying that were like, oh, there's no fraud. That is such a bullshit statement that it raises a conspicuous eye.
Why is it such a bullshit statement?
So it's your argument, out of every election that's ever called in the United States, the one that just happened to literally be the most secure ever was the one where we massively changed how we voted.
It wouldn't surprise me if most of the elections going forward were the most secure ever, because every new election, you've got new technologies and new processes to validate and verify votes. That's probably why Trump lost almost every single case he brought forward on the merits to check for voter fraud. And it's why even when Trump was in office and put together that commission to find voter fraud, he found none in his own government with his own people that he appointed that commission.
Again, it is everyone listening to this knows that it's, for example, one of the elections we had right after that, although it was just a state election, it happened to be in one of the biggest areas in New York City. Remember we had the election for, was it mayor of New York City, where it took weeks and weeks and weeks because, whoops, we accidentally put a bunch of test ballots in. Our bad, we put these test ballots in. And I think it was Adams came out and was like, whoa, because all the polling numbers showed he was way ahead. And he's like, somehow
I don't think anybody said the New York state elections were the most secure elections ever.
Right, they did not. So my point is this. Your argument seems to be, well, the reason that we could predict that this was the most secure election ever was because of the technology we have now. But then immediately following, the first big election we have after that is a total clusterfuck. Total clusterfuck. So what I'm supposed to believe is this.
Here, I grant you all of this. It's a clusterfuck, new things, blah, 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 blah. Let's say all of that is true, and it's obviously true. It's so obvious that every conservative Trump online seems to be pointing it out. Why didn't Barr back Trump? Why didn't Meadows back Trump? Why didn't any single person on his legal team immediately, why didn't anybody that was part of Trump's camp back Trump? Why didn't Pence back Trump? He's vice president. He should be more incentivized than anybody else. Why did nobody else back Trump on any of these claims then?
Two reasons. One, because a lot of the people you're citing, specifically Bill Barr, is corrupt and was there to keep the corruption going against Trump and do nothing about it. And secondly, because they might think like I did. Why didn't I back Trump? Well, because without definitive proof, it would be damaging to this country to just boldly assert, no. We're going to say that the electors...
that Trump didn't have proof of any of these things then?
I don't think that he had proofs positive, no.
Any proof at all?
Well, I mean, he had proof of serious questions that needed answered that he didn't think was resolved, but he didn't have proof that that would have went the way he wanted it. I said that as much from the outset. I said that I have not seen 100% proof positive. What I've seen is a lot of legitimate questions. For example, hundreds of thousands of ballots in Georgia that the chain of custody got lost. And we have chain of custody rules in our ballots for a specific reason. Because we know that...
Didn't the Georgia shit get recounted twice or whatever? Is that...
Well, recounts not an audit. A recount's just counting the ballots. For example, let's say hypothetically, you don't have to agree with me.
Real quick, so is the Georgia thing, you're saying this is still not resolved?
I don't believe so. So let's say hypothetically, there's 1 million votes in Georgia. Clearly that's not the case, but just a nice round number. There's 1 million votes in Georgia, right? And there's an accusation that 100,000 of those had an improper chain of custody. That for 6 hours, we don't know where the ballots were or who were in the rooms with the ballots. That's 100,000 out of 1 million. To simply recount those 1 million ballots doesn't answer the question of chain of custody. Now, even if it's legitimate that chain of custody was not followed,
I just want to read on this real quick, okay? Okay, so this was put out in 2021, so a couple years ago by the GPB, whatever the fuck this is. For the past 7 months, misinformation and false claims of fraud in Fulton County have dominated certain corners of the internet and the Republican Party, with many refusing to accept results that showed 3 separate times that Donald Trump lost Georgia. Georgia's most populous county is home to the heavily Democratic city of Atlanta and a history of problems and shortcomings with the election administration. But ever since November's presidential race saw President Joe Biden flip Georgia by about 12,000 votes, some pro-Trump media outlets and politicians have zeroed in on Fulton in search of a smoking gun that would prove massive fraud, cost the former president a victory. Those calls have come even after a full hand count, risk-limiting audit confirmed Biden's victory, and a Trump campaign-ordered recount validated victory once more. In recent weeks, a Newsmax personality launched a weekend of fantastic speculation about an alarm at a building that included Fulton's ballot warehouse, a Constitution Party officer who spouted fringe views, blah, blah, blah. So she said evidence would emerge. I thought that there was Okay. One claim is that the Fulton County is missing hundreds of transfer records for thousands of absentee ballots deposited in 38 drop boxes ahead of November's election, with an implication that the missing paperwork could or should invalidate more ballots of the margin of Biden's victory. Is this one of the things we're talking about, or?
I slightly lost you there. If you could reread the last 2 sentences,
I'm that so we were sorry. Missing, asserting that the county was missing 385 absentee ballot transfer forms used to document how many ballots were retrieved from drop boxes daily, and suggesting the provenance of nearly 19,000 ballots was questionable. Is this part of what we're talking about?
It may be. What I've heard is that there was chain of custody issues with around allegedly different ways around 170,000. So there were different chain of custody issues with some of those ballots. But I believe
After
what you're
GPB
talking about.
News asked the county Monday about the forms not included in the Georgia Star's records request, election staff located all but 8 of more of the 1,500 forms, sent them to state investigators, and provided them to GPB News on a flash drive. What is this chain of custody thing is lost? Wait, can you link me a story about this? Or?
Yeah. 1 second. And again, I do apologize that I was out with my family all day and didn't have time to get sources together and stuff. But here's one it's from, I don't know how reputable this site is, American Greatness, from Deborah Hain in June 4th, 2021. It says a Fulton County election official has admitted in writing that a few chain of custody documents are missing for thousands of absentee ballots deposited in Dropbox November 3rd, 2020 election in Georgia. According to the Georgia Star News analysis, however, the county has lost more than a few transfer forms. The news outlet puts the number at 385, representing 18,901 votes, or about 25% of the absentee ballots in the Fulton County 2020 election.
So then the response to this is apparently all but 8 of those 1,500 forms have been accounted for.
So when was the date? What was the date of the article that you put forth?
June 17th, 2021.
Okay, so this is June 14th. So it's right around the same time. So let's say that
but
that's true.
to be clear, this was literally in response to that Georgia Star article.
Okay.
But after GPB News asked the county Monday about the forms not included in the Georgia Star's records request, election staff located all but 8 of the more than 1,500 forms and sent them to state investigators and provided them to GPB News on a flash drive.
Okay, let's say that's true. That it's resolved. I don't know. I don't know what the response to that is. The point is, this is from 2021. Right. And so it was clear up until that point, even election officials were admitting that at least 18,000 of votes that they had lost chain of custody for.
I don't think that's true. I think that people were probably Trump and his team and everybody emailing Trump was trying to dig into every esoteric theory possible. And so we were getting recounts and we were getting re-audits and all of these things, but none of the results changed at all. So it seems like all of this is bullshit.
Well, again, those issues there's still issues in Georgia that are being taken to court. For example, Raffensperger is refusing to testify about voting machines that were used even this week. Is even something that's being talked about. So the idea that we had election officials admitting okay, we have been unable to provide the ballots or the chain of custody for 18,000 ballots thus far. And then finally in June 17th, which I'm not conceding that their response in June 17th is the end all be all, because we've seen before where they say that and then actually there's a retort. But even if that is the case, that wasn't provided until June 17th, 2021. So if you're looking at the election in January 6th, 2021, right, you could reasonably say there are huge issues with chains of custody for ballots in places like Georgia.
I don't think anybody was legitimately questioning this. I think it was just Trump getting esoteric theories. Because, again, were any of these things changed? Did anything come out of any of these challenges that were all being chased down in every single state from Trump's team and everybody else? Did anything end up amounting to anything? Or is it just that if you ask 50,000 questions in relation to the election, a few people are going to be like, oh, shit, hold on, let me check this. We don't have the answer for you immediately.
Now, what I'm saying is that Trump, it doesn't matter if things were eventually ran down or anything like that. It's clear that there wasn't going, even if, let me ask you this, seeing as how we have Supreme Court justices, when they issue a decision, that decision getting leaked, and then people protesting outside their house and assassination attempts occur, what do you think the chutzpah would require in that event if there was a serious challenge to look into it and say, yeah, actually the election results would be overturned? What do you think that would do to the country?
What do you are you saying that the Supreme Court decision? I don't understand the argument you're making here.
The argument I'm making is that unless you going into the case had 100% fucking proof positive that some serious fraud occurred, you'd be very hesitant to start to delve into something that could legitimately change the results of an election. Because
so you're saying that all of these people, every single one, was just too scared to dive in?
No, I'm saying many of these were rejected on things like standing, and it's not just their personal safety, but it's also knowledge of what would happen in the country if they decided to raise these questions, how it would prolong.
Has any judge ever or anybody come out saying that we were too scared to look into this because it might hurt the country?
Well, no, that would be pretty dumb of them to admit that, wouldn't it? And I'm not saying
wouldn't it be dumb for Comey to come out and say that we've reopened an investigation on Hillary Clinton and that we've announced the results of a investigation? Wouldn't that also also be dumb? Didn't that also happen? Wasn't that also maybe election determinative? I mean,
seeing as how you brought it up, and I've answered this for you 3 or 4 times, I will repeat my answer then. He was forced to do so because a whistleblower within the FBI was going outside the FBI because the FBI and James Comey were attempting to conceal evidence of possible criminality of Hillary Clinton that was found on Anthony Weiner's
none
laptop.
of that forces Comey to make any statement.
Sure it does,
publicly.
because he knew that the chances of harming Hillary Clinton would be more significant if he continued and forced that whistleblower to go outside, and then another agency would have to say, James Comey buried this evidence to ensure Hillary Clinton was
Do you have
elected.
any proof that Comey said that he felt pressured by the whistleblower to go public to help Hillary's campaign?
I have well, of course he didn't say the latter part, right? But he said that the reason that he came out was because of the whistleblower. That's what I don't know that he admitted that, but that's what the IG report found. And I've read this to you several times. You know this. You've never even attempted to dispute it. That's absolutely what happened. A member of the FBI that knew that they had this laptop that had emails from Hillary Clinton repeatedly reached out to top brass, including James Comey.
Hold on. Can you shoot me that again?
Yes. All right. It's going to
We
take
just
a while.
read this that I think we just leaked this yesterday, the day before, that Comey went public. What was this article that just going to be related to Loretta Lynch?
Okay, this is from the IG report. I'll link it to you. I don't know that this is the part that I'm fully talking about because I'm just using the search feature on it. But I'll start to read the initial part where it starts to talk about Anthony Weiner's laptop. Ready? This is from page 11, section 4, discovery in September 2016 of emails on Weiner laptop. In September 2016, the FBI's New York field office and U.S. Attorney for Southern District of New York began investigating former Congressman Anthony Weiner for his online relationship with a minor. The federal search warrant was obtained September 26, 2016 for Weiner's iPhone, iPad, and laptop computer. The FBI obtained these devices the same day. The search warrant authorized the government to search for evidence relating to the following crimes. Child porn, stuff like that. The Weiner case agent told the OIG that he began processing Weiner's devices on September 26th. By the way, I'm not watching your screen, Destiny, but I bet your audience is laughing at me saying Weiner over and over, but we'll commence. Okay. And that he noticed within hours that there were over 300,000 emails on the laptop. He said that either that evening or the next morning, he saw at least one BlackBerry pin message between Clinton and Abedin, as well as emails between them. He said that he recalled seeing emails associated with about 7 domains, such as yahoo.com, state.gov, clintonfoundation.org, Clinton email, and hillaryclinton.com. The case was immediately notified the NYO chain of command, and the information was ultimately sent to the NYO assistant director in charge, Sweeney, on September 28th. As we described in Chapter 9 of our report, Sweeney took the following steps to notify the FBI headquarters about the mid-year related emails. On September 28th, during a secure video teleconference, Sweeney reported that Weiner investigation agents had discovered 141,000 emails on Weiner's laptop that were potentially relevant to the mid-year investigation. The OIG determined that this SVTC was led by then-Director Andrew McCabe, Deputy Director McCabe, and approximately 39 senior FBI executives would have participated. Comey wasn't present. Sweeney said he again spoke to McCabe on the evening of September 28th. Sweeney said that during his call, he informed McCabe that the NYO personnel had continued processing the laptop and now identified 347,000 emails. Sweeney said he also called 2 FBI executive directors on September 28th and informed them that the Weiner case team had discovered emails relevant to the mid-year investigation. One of the EADs told the OIG that he had then called McCabe, and McCabe told the EAD that he was aware of the emails. The EAD told us that there was no doubt in my mind when we finished the conversation, McCabe understood the gravity of what the find was. Sweeney said he also spoke to FBI Assistant Director Bill Priestap on September 28th and in 29th, 2016. Emails indicate their conversation on September 29th. They discussed the limited scope of the Weiner search warrant, the need to obtain additional legal processes mid-year. McCabe told the OIG that he considered the information provided by Sweeney to be a big deal, and he instructed Priestap to send a team to New York to review the emails on the Weiner laptop. McCabe told the OIG that he recalled talking to Comey about the issue right around the time McCabe found out about it. McCabe described it as a flyby, where the Weiner laptop was like one on a list of things we discussed. Comey said he recalled first learning about the emails on the laptop some point in early October 2016, although he said it was possible he could have heard about it in late September. Comey told the OIG this information didn't index with him, which he attributed to the way the information was presented to him, and I didn't know that Weiner was married to Huma Abedin. Text messages from FBI Director Assistant Peter Strzok indicated that he, McCabe, and Precedent discussed the Weiner laptop on September 28th. Strzok said he initially planned to send a team to New York to review the emails, but a conference with the NYO was rescheduled instead. The conference took place on September 29th, and 5 members of the FBI mid-year team participated. Notes from the conference call indicate participants discussed the presence of a large volume of emails on the Weiner laptop and specific domain names, including clintonemail.com and the state.gov. Mid-year SSA said that the NYO also mentioned seeing BlackBerry domain emails on the laptop. Additional discussions took place on October 3rd and 4th, 2016. However, after October 4th, we found no evidence anyone associated with the mid-year investigation, including the entire leadership team at FBI headquarters, took any action on the Weiner laptop issue until October 24th, and then did so only after the Weiner case agent expressed concerns to the Southern District of New York, prompting the Southern District of New York to contact the Deputy Attorney General on October 27th to raise concerns about the lack of action. On Friday, if you want, we can go through more of it, right? But that's saying what I said, that finally the case agent had, because he kept reaching out to the high-level people.
Well, wait. To be clear, you were talking about like a whistleblower pressuring Comey to go public with the announcing of the reopening of the investigation. So one, I was talking about Comey announcing the results of their prior investigation. I thought that was he was just worried about an optics issue. That was like potentially destructive to Hillary Clinton's campaign, number one. Number two, this is a whole separate issue, but even at that, your initial claim, I don't think has been satisfied at all about this. Is McCabe here considered a whistleblower?
No, it's not McCabe. It is the unnamed lead agent, it might be Sweeney, that literally kept contacting the FBI and talked to them specifically at the end of September and early October, and the high FBI agents, such as even Comey, admitting we knew as early October, and then not getting any...
Which part are we here?
Text messages of FBI Director Assistant Strzok indicated that he, McCabe, and Precedent discussed the Weiner laptop on September 28th. Strzok said they initially planned to send a team to New York to review the emails, but a conference call in NYU was scheduled instead. The conference call took place September 29th, and 5 members of the FBI mid-year team participated. Notes from the conference indicate participants said the presence of 350,000 emails in the Weiner laptop, specific domain names. They also mentioned seeing BlackBerry. Additional discussions took place on October 3rd and 4th. However, after October 4th, we found no evidence that anyone associated with the mid-year investigation, including the leadership team at the FBI headquarters, took any action on the Weiner laptop until October 24th, and then did so only after the Weiner case agent expressed concerns to the Southern District of New York, which prompted the Southern District of New York.
Yeah, wait, real quick. What's the part here about a whistleblower being involved? Am I just missing that every time?
Well, I guess I'm using the term whistleblower to mean the FBI agent that repeatedly reached out to the top brass at the FBI and said, we need to investigate this, that was getting no response, that then had to go outside his agency to a different agency, the Southern District of New York, and say what I would call blow the whistle, saying, I see significant problems that there are these important emails that no top brass at the FBI is doing anything about. That prompts the Southern District of New York.
Sorry. And then also, let me be clear here. Wait, I'm just trying to clear. Okay. It looks like here the Weiner case agent expressed concerns to the Southern District of New York. What is this like going outside of everything or whatever?
So there's normally a chain of command. If you work for the FBI, do you think it's normal to go outside the FBI to different agencies and say, I'm worried that this isn't being investigated?
Is the Southern District of New York a different agency, or is that just another office for the FBI?
I don't believe it's an FBI agent. I believe it's an attorney general. It could be technically considered an FBI agent. But nonetheless, it was outside the traditional chain of command. It was outside...
Wait. Where do you see that at? I'm just trying to figure that out.
Well, let me repeat what the IG says. Additional discussions took place October 3rd and 4th. However, after October 4th, we found no evidence anyone associated with this investigation, the mid-year investigation, including the entire leadership at the FBI, took any action on this until October 24th, and did so only after Weiner case agent expressed concerns to the Southern District of New York, prompting the Southern District of New York to contact the Deputy Attorney General on October 21st to raise concerns about lack of action. So they had their traditional mid-year investigation that this agent was part of. They had the top FBI leadership that was part of that they were contacting. They repeatedly contacted them and made it known.
Southern District of New York is the Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York.
Right. Okay, so it's not specifically FBI. So he then goes outside of that case of the task force and of the top FBI brass that aren't giving him results, and goes to the Southern District of New York. The Southern District of New York is worried enough about it that they contact the FBI, and they're like, what's going on? This is what forced Comey's hand, as he admitted in his book, and I believe as the IG...
Why did this force Comey to publicly announce the reopening of the investigation?
Because, as Comey admitted, and I believe the IG report might suggest this, and Comey admitted in his book, he thought that Hillary Clinton was easily going to re-win an election. And he thought it would be an
No. That's why he said that he didn't think it would matter as much. But I'm asking, what prompted him to announce it publicly?
If you would let me finish, I'm explaining. And so because of such, he was worried that had Hillary won, and then it came out, James Comey gave a public press conference where he exonerated Hillary and said, nope, we've looked at all the evidence. There's nothing to see here. If anything new comes up, we'd let you know, but there's nothing to see here, or, no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute. All the time knowing that there were hundreds of thousands of emails that Comey and the FBI was aware of, but chose to not investigate, and then privately looked at them. Let's say he didn't announce it, he just privately. And then Hillary wins the election. That what Comey was worried about was, rightfully, people would say, James Comey lied. James Comey covered up that there was all these other emails through another person that didn't have the right to see these.
None of what you're saying makes sense. Why didn't he just reopen the investigation but not say anything publicly about it?
Okay, let me repeat again. Maybe I'm talking too fast, right? Because he knew that it would eventually come public, that the public thought the case was closed because he said the case was closed.
Why did he ever even make the announcement that the case was closed? Why did he say anything publicly ever?
Okay, so now we're on. So now we can see that the idea of the second part of it, why did he re-announce the opening? He did so in an attempt because, one, they were trying to cover up for Hillary Clinton, and second, because a whistleblower went outside that it forced their hand to publicly say...
You still haven't proved anything about the whistleblower going outside and forcing his hand. You're trying to make the claim that, like, if the investigation would have continued, the fact that this guy that was contacting the Southern District of New York would have shown that they didn't investigate like, none of this makes sense. Why didn't the FBI announce like their investigation into Donald Trump at the time?
What do you think the IG meant by this? FBI headquarters took any action on the Wiener laptop until October 24th. Quote, and then did so only after the Wiener case agent expressed concerns to the Southern District of New York, prompting the Southern District of New York to contact the Office of the Deputy Attorney General on October 21st to raise concerns about lack of action. What do you think he's saying? Why do you think the IG made it a point to say, it seems like they only took action after this FBI agent went outside the agency to talk to a different agency, and that agency then contacted the FBI about their concerns, and then finally they reopened? I think it is a reasonable
saying is that the FBI was dragging their feet on this for some reason, and it seems like they only fucking took action on it after the Southern District of New York contacted the Office of the Deputy Attorney General because another guy was raising concerns about it.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. The only right.
You're saying that this motivated Comey to start making public announcements about the investigation.
No, I said that that's why they reopened the investigation and the reason that he did it public. So they were trying to cover up let me say this. This either shows through incompetence or corruption. They weren't looking at these emails that they themselves admit were important, but chose not to look at them. They knew they existed.
Wait. They themselves admitted it was important. I thought that
Correct.
They just didn't give a fuck because they thought it wasn't whatever. Didn't it end up being nothing? Didn't nothing come from this, or am I wrong?
McCabe told me...
Answer.
I'm going to answer...
No, I need to answer that question. Didn't nothing come from the email investigation?
Right. What came from the email investigation was that the same FBI that could only process about 10 pages a day for Freedom of Information Act requests went through 300-something thousand emails in 2 or 3 days and said, check them all, there's nothing to see here. Yes, that is what happened. In 3 days, they went through all the emails and said that there was nothing to see there, everything was gravy. That is what the FBI said.
Do you think, hold on. First of all, did you have problems with the Twitter files when they said that they went through every single email and I think, wasn't it a day they had access to that server room? Weren't they just doing it by searching for keywords and stuff? Wouldn't it be the same thing with the FBI here? Do you think they're going to read every single email, or do they just see who they're sent to and who they're from to see if it matters or not?
I think in a criminal investigation, it's different than something like the Twitter files investigation, where you would be more diligent and not just doing a few keyword searches and then declaring
in a criminal investigation. Wasn't the criminal investigation looking for child porn?
No, but it was part of the mid-year exam. It became part of the mid-year exam once they found emails that was from the domain names that Hillary Clinton had. which was a criminal investigation.
How many emails of those 300,000 emails were to or from Hillary Clinton?
It doesn't matter. They would have to go
No, wait. It does, because if only like 4 of those emails were to or from Hillary Clinton, then like, yeah, they could probably go through this in
I'm unaware.
20 minutes.
I'm unaware. What I'm telling you is then you would also agree when it comes to Freedom of Information Act requests, it's probably illegitimate for the FBI to say we can only get through like 10 a day.
10 what a day?
Like documents, emails.
When has the FBI said they can only get through 10 emails a day?
Well, I guess I'll just leave it to you to look up how quickly they process Freedom of Information Act requests and how backlogged they are. Nonetheless, another thing you said was...
Hold on.
Wait.
Just in regards to... Hold on, what you just said. I'm just going to take a stab in the dark at what you're probably referring to.
Okay.
When for a FOIA request, if they're saying like 10 a day or whatever, are they saying that like when we go through when we're going to release classified information, that it takes us a long time to verify like what might be connected to other things and what needs to remain classified and what needs to remain redacted versus what can be released to the public? Because that's far different than going through 300,000 emails in an internal investigation where you're not worrying about redacting or classifying anything. Those are two completely and totally unrelated questions.
They're not unrelated.
How do those things relate to each other whatsoever?
They're not unrelated in that they have the same agency in dealing with the speed of which they could go through things and the
wait. That is not true. Hold on.
That is true.
The speed in which they can go through things, the speed at which you read an email is going to be significantly different than the speed in which you go through a paper that you want to release to the public that was previously classified to figure out what might be damaging or not. Those are two completely different things, right? You agree that it might take, I maybe read 1,000 emails in the time that it would take me to figure out for one document how many different agencies I need to contact. What is it? The CIA, the NSA, the FBI? How many different people might be involved? That might take days. That might take weeks for a single email. Do you agree with that? I need you to answer that. I need you to answer that without pivoting. Do you agree that it could take days or weeks to verify if a single email could be released to the public or what needs to be redacted?
I will answer that without pivoting as long as then I get the chance to ask questions in a form of a quid pro quo as opposed to you trying to control the direction of the conversation by continuing to ask questions.
Because every time I ask what I think is a really reasonable question, you like pivot off into like some other
I'm not pivoting. I'll answer directly. Is that fair?
Okay. So it's a super reasonable question. I think, is it fair to say that it would take a lot longer to figure out one email what needs to be redacted versus what can be released publicly for something that's previously classified versus just reading an email?
Yes, the speed of... Let me answer, and then I get to ask you questions, and we'll do it in a tit-for-tat quid pro quo. Yes, the speed of which those things would happen would be different. However, the desperation of only being able to go through 10 emails when it comes to Freedom of Information Act requests, as opposed to in 2 or 3 days going through hundreds of thousands of emails that you have intentionally sat on and chose not to look at for months, would seem to call into question the motivation of if they really wanted to go through that shit with a fine-tooth comb. Okay, now can I ask you? Now you seem to suggest that they didn't think this was important.
Wait. It's just on this last thing, and then you can answer. Just curious, because the Durham report reviewed all the conduct of these agencies to see if anything improper was done. Did the Durham report go over the Anthony Weiner laptop thing and said that the FBI acted with impropriety and not going over those 300,000 emails?
I'm not quite sure what the conclusion of the Durham report was, or rather they went into the Anthony Weiner laptop. Now, to my question, you seem to suggest that they didn't think it was a big deal. Can you explain what this sentence means? Quote, McCabe told the OIG he considered the information provided by Sweeney, the agent that talked to him about these. Well, let's go up a little. Sweeney said he also spoke to the FBI Assistant Director Bill Precept on September 28th and 29th, 2016. Emails indicate their conversation September 29th. They'd escaped the scope of the Weiner laptop. McCabe told the OIG he considered the information provided by Sweeney to be a big deal, and said he instructed Precept to send a team to New York to review the emails. That seems to be, again, can you admit you were wrong when you said they didn't think it was a big deal? Can you admit that? Don't pivot. Just admit you were wrong when you said that, right?
That was what it seemed to be to me, is that they didn't think it was a big deal, yeah.
No. So when you saying, so I just want to be clear, your argument is when McCabe told the OIG he thought this was, quote, a big deal, your interpretation is he didn't think it was a big deal.
Is McCabe part of the executive team?
McCabe is the assistant director of the FBI under only James Comey. Or I'm sorry, he is, wait, he's maybe third in command. What is his official title? But he's like top 3 guy.
Okay, hold on, let me find the part down.
Deputy director, so that puts him number 2, right? James Comey's the director. He's the deputy director.
October 4th, we found no evidence that anyone assisted with the investigation, including the entire leadership team at the FBI headquarters, took any action on the Weiner laptop issue until the week of October 24th, and that did so only after the Weiner case agent expressed concerns to the SDNY, prompting SDNY to contact the Office of the Deputy Attorney General. October raised concern about the lack of action. Yeah, I don't know. My assumption would be that they didn't think it was a big deal, but apparently McCabe said it was a big deal. So why did McCabe say they sat on it? What was his explanation?
They didn't have one. And if you follow the IG report later, it says that the explanation that was given by the FBI to the IG was basically that they had, I forget exactly how they worded it.
As we describe in Chapter 9 of our report, the explanations that we were given for the FBI's failure to take immediate action on the Wiener laptop fell into 4 general categories. 1, the FBI mid-year team was waiting for additional information about the contents of the laptop from NYO, which was not provided until late October. 2, the FBI mid-year team could not review the emails without additional legal authority, such as consent or a new search warrant. 3, the FBI mid-year team and senior FBI officials did not believe that the information on the laptop was likely to be significant. And 4, key members of the FBI mid-year team had been reassigned to the investigation of Russian interference in the U.S. election, which was a higher priority. We found that these explanations to be unpersuasive justifications for not acting sooner, given the FBI's leadership's conclusions about the importance of the information, and the FBI mid-year team had sufficient information to take action in early October and knew at the time that it would need a new search warrant to review any Clinton-Abedin emails. Moreover, given the FBI's extensive resource, the fact that Strzok and several other FBI members of the mid-year team had been assigned to the Russian investigation, which was extremely active during the September and October time period, was not an excuse for failing to take any action during this time period on the Wiener laptop. So could it?
Let's keep going. Let's keep reading. The FBI's failure to act in late September.
Failure to act in late September or early October is even less justifiable when contrasted with the attention and resources of the FBI management and some members of the mid-year team dedicated to other activities in connection with the mid-year investigation during the same period. As detailed in Chapter 8, these activities included the preparation of Comey's speech at the FBI SAC conference on October 12th. You want me to keep reading?
Just the last sentence. Once it gets to the paragraph, I'll read it. In assessing the decision to prioritize the Russia investigation over following up on the mid-year related investigative lead discovered on the Wiener laptop, we were particularly concerned about text messages sent by Strzok and Page that potentially indicated or created the appearance that investigative decisions they made were impacted by bias or improper considerations. So in other words, what this just said in totality is they knew that these emails were important. Their email suggested it. They intentionally didn't act upon it until a whistleblower went outside the agency. That outside agency then goes to the FBI, which forced their hand. But even at the end of it, they can't be certain that the they are not persuaded by the FBI's excuses and actually think that the text messages between Strzok and Page showing obvious bias may have had a conclusion to prioritize going after Trump and Hillary.
Yeah, so that might be the narrative that you're spinning, but it sounds like what's being assessed in this report, what's being asserted in this report, is that there definitely could have been some bias. I think the Durham report said as much, that they wanted to prioritize the Russia investigation because they thought that there was something more juicy there, and that it seemed to be the case that this particular laptop, they didn't have any good reasons to not pursue it, but why? It seems like a combination of like either incompetence or just like bias here is feeling these things. There's not an intentional effort to obscure or hide this.
That's untrue. That's you inserting your own narrative. So just to be clear, what the IG report showed, even without getting to Durham, and I just went back and watched IG Horowitz testify in front of Congress for 6 hours the other day. It is clear that what the IG report is suggesting is that it was not his role, unless it was 100% definitive, to determine what the intent was by the litany of egregious decisions that the FBI had in their investigation of Hillary versus their investigation of Trump. And that the only explanations that they were able to come up with was either gross incompetence or corruption from bias or somewhere in between those two things. But they were let me finish. But they were unsatisfied with the FBI's explanations, and therefore they kicked the investigation back to Christopher Wray and the FBI to investigate and get to further the bottom as to why these decisions occurred. Furthermore, the one time that he literally says, the IG says, the one time they're willing to go far enough and say, we actually were really concerned about this bias, was with the Anthony Weiner thing, where Strzok was one of the agents.
Paragraph down here at the bottom here, the next paragraph literally says, we searched for evidence that the Weiner laptop was deliberately placed in the back burner by others in the FBI to protect Clinton, but found no evidence in emails, text messages, instant messages, or documents that suggested an improper purpose. We also took note of the fact that numerous other FBI executives, including the approximately 39 who participated in the September 28th SVTC, were briefed on the potential existence of mid-year related emails on the Weiner laptop. We also noted that the Russia investigation was under the supervision of Priestap, for whom we found no evidence of bias, and who himself was aware of the Weiner laptop issue by September 29th. However, we also did not identify a consistent or persuasive explanation for the FBI's failure to act for almost a month after learning of potential mid-year related emails on the Weiner laptop. So it seems like a ton of other people knew about this, other people that this IG report did not say were biased, that Priestap himself knew about it and that he didn't seem to be biased at all, but people just didn't dig into it.
No,
so I'm going to repeat.
That's not what it's suggesting. I
That's
understand that.
no. That's not what it's suggesting. That's what it literally explicitly says here.
Let me repeat again in ways I understand that the spin will be, because this was the same spin when Horowitz testified in front of Congress that the Democrats said over and over.
Wait, hold on. Just to be clear, I'm not spinning. I just read you verbatim from this report that you seem to take as gospel up until this paragraph that you don't like, but go ahead.
No, what I'm saying is the IG repeatedly said, we didn't find a satisfactory explanations for why these things occurred. Was it incompetence or was it bias? Now, what they did find was that there was obvious bias for many members of the FBI, like Peter Strzok, like Kevin Kleinsmith, other people at the top of the FBI that were involved in these investigations. There was bias. What they were unable to find was bias influenced definitively these decisions. The decisions were improper. The explanations that the FBI gave for the decisions were unsatisfactory, but they didn't find things like an email from Bill's pre-step to Andy McCabe that said, hey, let's intentionally not look into the Anthony Weiner laptop to help Hillary Clinton. That's what they're saying. They're not saying there wasn't bias or that the bias didn't influence.
I understand. Why is it that for pre-step, a guy who knew about the laptop and the 39 other people who participated in the September 28th SVTC, why didn't pre-step or any of those other people that where no evidence of bias was on, why didn't they more stringently pursue investigation of the laptop?
Well, maybe because there wasn't an email showing their bias, that the culture of the FBI was biased against Trump, as is evident not only by text messages of certain messages, but the fact that they were willing to do all sorts of incredibly shady. Let me finish. What the bar of evidence that you're suggesting is this: unless we have a telephone call where Bill Priestap says all of these decisions we're making is to fuck over Donald Trump, you say, then there's no evidence.
Wait, do you think that's the only way that you can prove bias?
Well, what did he suggest? I already told you. What Horowitz said was the only attempt they were looking at was they were asking the FBI. They didn't have the ability, for example, to, panel a grand jury necessarily and charge people with crimes. They could suggest.
Let
me finish.
Also, couldn't it be possible that there's a brand new, sexy Russia collusion shit? And then you've got a child porn guy who's got 300,000 emails and people don't care that much. That McKay might have been like, well, hey guys, maybe this is important. But like most people are like, bro, I want to be focusing on this sexy Russia investigation. Fuck this cuck shit. Like, isn't that like a totally valid interpretation of what could have happened?
I understand the propensity for people that want to defend the double standards to say, but isn't it hypothetical in some world that the FBI could just have over and over and over again prioritize things would be the detriment of Donald Trump and things that would help Hillary Clinton in almost every single aspect? Isn't it possible that in each specific decision in a vacuum, they could have done so only because they were incompetent or they saw a shiny bauble and said, let's do that? Hypothetically, yes, that's possible. In the same way that it's possible that I guess we could all be in a matrix and that this could all be a simulation. That too is possible. But in the face of overwhelming evidence where we see that there was obvious bias to the point where lead agents were talking about insurance policies, to the point where they were illegally spying on Trump, to the point where almost every single time they were going after people connected to Trump, they were going as hard as possible. But when they were going after people they were connected to Hillary, they were going as easy as possible. That at some point, especially when the IG says, in this one particular issue you raised about James Comey and announcing things about the closure of the investigation into Hillary Clinton, that they literally at that point were expressly worried about the bias from people like Strzok and Page and were never given justifiable answers by the FBI. Let me turn the question to you. Do you think it's entirely possible, given the absolute known bias of the FBI, that they decided to prioritize the Russia investigation over the Weiner laptop because they wanted to hurt Trump and help Hillary?
Is it possible?
Sure.
Yeah, of course it's possible, but there's no evidence for that.
Let me ask you this further. Do you think it would be a big deal if they did that?
If they were intentionally trying to bury some cases in an attempt to, be politically biased, that would be a big deal, yeah.
Okay, given that, don't you think that there should be an investigation that the FBI should have to come up with justifiable answers?
It seems like that they did this. Isn't that what this is?
Let me repeat.
And they didn't find any good justifiable answers.
Right.
If the answer is just incompetence, then they wouldn't have any good answers, right?
So then you would say that that's sufficient. Well, the FBI is just incompetent. Do you think that every single person involved should be fired then?
I don't. I would have to know the internal reasonings for why they ignored this particular thing. I'm not sure.
If this is, can you come up with an answer short of incompetence or corruption of why this would have occurred?
I don't have access to the totality of like all of the FBI's investigative arms and body. I don't know. Like, for instance, let's say that we did a big audit and we found out that there were like 300 outstanding FBI cases that they have the resources to deal with, but for some reason they just aren't. Then I would say like, this is like, I mean, it's bad and it needs to be improved, but I would say like, it's whatever. But let's say that we did an investigation of the FBI and we found out that actually the average response time for a case of this level of importance where where an executive director brings it to the attention of the team, usually it's solved in like 1 to 3 days. But for this, it took 20 or 30 days, maybe even more if somebody wouldn't brought it up. Then I'd say like, ooh, there's probably something more that needs to be dug into that there. Yeah, but it would depend on like the response to those investigations. But the FBI has investigated itself and been investigated by other parties. Damn, how many fucking times now? How many different reports? How many internal investigations? How many, like the Durham report? How many Senate Judiciary? Like all these hearings, all these reports, all this shit. And you don't even like the part of this report that disagrees with you.
It has nothing to do with disagreeing. I correctly articulated what it said. The way it's being spun is showing, there was no bias. No, what it's saying is they were unable to prove bias. They found examples of bias. They clearly did. It shows it all through the report.
But they also find examples of people that they'd cleared of bias.
No, they did not. That is not true. They did not clear anyone of bias. They were unable to find evidence proving their bias, which is different. When you say clear bias, that implies that like they were looking at their emails and saw that their emails somehow showed that there was no potential.
So then your assumption here is that every single agent in the FBI is biased then?
No,
or a majority of them are?
That is not. My assumption is that the culture at the top of the FBI was clearly biased and was prioritizing helping the candidate they wanted, just like Chuck Schumer said they would, that they would find 6 ways of Sunday at getting back. And the Durham report suggests as much as well. And I've gone over both of these things with you in the past, where the Durham report expressly says that he's not even really interested in suggesting actual policy changes. It's more of a problem of the culture of the FBI not living up to their message of fidelity to the law, right?
And then you're saying that then when they did finally go through the laptop, that they lied about what they found.
Wait. No, I'm not necessarily. I'm saying they went through it at a rapid pace. It could have been that somehow they went through it, and I'm not even suggesting that those emails on that laptop shows any guilt of Hillary. Let me go further than that. I don't ever think Hillary should have been locked up for the email stuff.
Wait, hold on. We're not even doing this. I'm just saying that, like, you're saying, wow, JD Base, $600. You're saying that
half that's mine, right? Since I'm just fucking.
Yeah. Wait, but so they went through the laptop and there was nothing there of value.
So they claim, and that could be true. The point. Wait,
what do you mean? So they claim? So.
Right. That's what I mean. So they claim. So they went through it in 3 days, said, we looked at all the emails, it's all good. Comey came out and said, hey, we found these emails, we have to relook into them because a whistleblower went outside the FBI, which forced their hand. He had already made an ass of himself, right?
Okay, I got it. Okay, I have to listen. Okay. Just to wrap a bow on all of this and just ask sort of broad.
Okay, well, just to connect this to sort of like the idea, I think it's...
Yeah, to connect all this. So despite the fact that this IG report doesn't seem to assert that there was like foul play, but that there was bias and that might have hampered the investigative process, even though the emails were searched for on all of this and they went through the 300,000 emails or whatever, but apparently they didn't find anything. You're comfortable feeling pretty strongly that there was some kind of overt or covert act here to help Hillary Clinton. Even though there's no direct evidence of that anywhere here, you feel comfortable saying that. But for something like Donald Trump spreading verifiably false election misinfo and voter rigging that everybody around him was telling him false over and over, for that, you can't possibly know if Trump was trying to do something intentionally wrong. You're willing to give him the benefit of the doubt there, even though he's telling lies that every single person around him is saying is wrong over and over and over again.
All right.
How do you rationalize it?
So what I'm saying is, when you have top FBI agents that are tasked with investigating both Hillary and Trump simultaneously, that are admitting that they want an insurance policy to stop Donald Trump, when you have action after action after action that is called out by the Inspector General in the mid-year exam investigation into Hillary Clinton, where he's like, this is problematic, this is problematic, this is problematic, almost every single one of them going in the direction of giving the benefit of the doubt to Hillary, and then you have problematic action after action after action, including illegal spying on Trump's team, that are as hard as possible going after Trump on the other hand, that we start to develop a pattern that you could put in connection with their statements and their obvious bias, both contemporaneously in the forms of people like Strzok and Page saying they want insurance policies to stop Trump, and post hoc where you see people like James Comey that clearly hated Donald Trump and has made it his mission to go after Donald Trump in as many ways as possible, even going so far as to withhold evidence and give it to a journalist friend of his, which recommended a charge from a grand jury for him mishandling that evidence, it's clear to see that there is a pattern over and over and over again that shows that the most likely response is that it was done so for corrupt reasons to protect Hillary Clinton and to go after the people they don't like, just like Chuck Schumer admitted that if you criticize the FBI, they'll find 6 ways of Sunday to get back at you. And that's what they did even at the start in 2015, and they've continued to do to Trump going into 2023 and going into 2024. That's what's occurring. And I'm saying that even if your explanation, the only other possible explanation that could be given is, well, we should ignore all of that and just look at everything in a vacuum and say it could just be gross incompetence, then why would we accept anything that agency says going forward on any other matter? If they are so incompetent that they literally didn't know things like they weren't supposed to change an email that says, yes, Carter Page did help the CIA, to say, no, he didn't help the CIA. If they're that incompetent that they didn't know that, why should we trust them in anything that they ever talk about, right? And this is what the IG's clearly saying.
Why would you trust them? Because we have third-party oversight for these
like
agencies. Because we see...
Like the IG? What
do you mean? Didn't we just literally read an Inspector General report?
So what I'm
Didn't
telling you
we have the Durham report? Can't Congress authorize people to... And does the FBI ever turn out anything credible ever? Or is everything from the FBI uncredible and they just might have issues relating to political bias in these types of charged issues?
Well, I would say it's the latter. But if your explanation is, no, it has nothing to do with corruption and bias, it's just that they're incompetent, then it would be the former.
I never said it didn't have anything to do with bias.
Oh,
this report here asserts that it has something to do with bias. They literally said that in this report. But you're not claiming it was bias. You're claiming that it was an intentional effort to obstruct an investigation of something potentially incriminating with Hillary. And then you also believe that the 300,000 email investigation was also faked, even if you're not saying it. You do believe that. So you're going way further than this.
No. If it was biased, then it is corrupt. If the FBI decided to do actions that were later determined...
Bias and corrupt are two different things.
Hear me out. Okay, if the FBI does something against their policies, right, that's not allowed within their policies, or that's against the law, right, and they did so for bias reasons, is that not the definition of corruption?
When I think the worst thing that was shown in the Durham report was the one guy that... Wasn't there one guy that faked part of a FISA warrant or whatever?
Well, the Kevin Kleinsmith was criminally charged for that. Yeah.
That would be an example of like corruption. Yeah.
Okay.
But like preferring some investigations over another, I think is an example of political bias. Would I call it corruption? Probably not, but it's definitely something that needs to be fixed.
Okay, well,
there's a huge problem for sure.
I would call that corruption, but nonetheless, even if we don't, there's still levels much higher than just prioritizing an investigation. For example, the IG report says the most damning thing that happened was that the FISA warrant relied on a suspected Russian spy by the name of Igor Dushenko.
Wait, yeah, I know we're not going to know every other fucking thing. I understand.
Well, right, I understand, and that behooves you. One, it's difficult to do.
No, it's like I don't have time to jump through every single fucking conspiracy assertion that with no solid evidence for literally any of the stuff we've talked about.
That's not true. That's not true.
To be clear, the only thing that you've proven the entire time is that there was a biased culture at the FBI and that probably delayed the reading of the emails on the laptop. No. That's the only thing that you've proven the entire time in like the past like hour and a half of investigation.
No. Let's be clear what happened, right? Like let's go through a couple things here. One, it's because you directly brought up this issue of Comey announcing about Hillary's investigation, and I went to that specific issue. And
I'm curious why he announced it ahead of time. None of this, I don't think, even said anything about why Comey announced it ahead of time. All of that is speculation on your part.
On this part of why he reopened the investigation, I was vindicated. The evidence said exactly what I said.
Hold on.
As it has the last time.
I never had a question about why it was reopened. I had a question about why it was announced to the public. That was the whole initial question I had.
The people that usually bring up I misinterpreted exactly what you said, and you seem to be contentious on this issue that we were talking about. We could talk about specifically why he announced in the way he announced in the first place.
I said that I don't know why he ever announced the reopening the investigation. And you said it's because he felt pressure by a whistleblower.
Right. So you just admit, you said, I don't know why he announced the reopening. That's what I thought you said. Right, yeah. Right. The reopening, which is exactly what I showed. My version of the events were accurate.
Why didn't he announce it? That was the crazy part. Them reopening the investigation, there's nothing wrong with that. If the FBI wants to reopen an investigation, do it. But announcing it publicly is a big break from norms that super damaged Hillary's campaign.
He announced it publicly, as I said, because that and you have nothing to dispute this, as he said in his book, which I don't have in front of me, he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and he thought that seeing as how he told Congress that the case was closed, he told the American people the case was closed, if it really wasn't closed, right? And the American people later found out that it looks like the FBI was intentionally not acting on this information until a whistleblower forced their hand, that they would correctly blame James Comey and the FBI for putting their thumb on the scale by lying to the American people and saying the case was closed when it wasn't.
This is conjecture that you can't prove. Okay.
Right.
Comey, if you can find me anything with Comey talking about, because we looked at this yesterday because it came up in an unrelated thing. I thought Comey said that he wanted to make an announcement because he thought that it looked improper for the FBI not to say anything because of Loretta Lynch's meetings with Clinton. These were the reasons why he felt like he needed to say something publicly, which was a break from norms. This pressure from whistleblower stuff, this is completely and totally invented by you based on this IG report.
Correct me if I'm wrong. What you're talking about is his initial announcement of the closing of the investigation when he mentions Loretta Lynch.
Yeah, I believe so.
Right. So when it comes to the reopening, that's a different question than the Loretta Lynch situation.
Okay, where is your evidence for the reopening part?
Well, we've already talked about why they reopened, so the only question would be...
Why do you keep saying that, Rob?
Because
I'm asking you, why did he announce it publicly?
Right, which is what I was getting to, so you misspoke there, and I was just clarifying for everyone.
I didn't misspeak. This whole conversation opened because I said, why did Comey announce it publicly? Why did he announce the reopening publicly?
Okay, so he announced the reopening public because he announced the closing publicly.
That's the answer?
Right. Okay. He told the American people and Congress this investigation is closed. And then a whistleblower forced an outside agency to come to them and said, no, it's not. Here's a bunch of emails.
In fact, none of this matters. I don't know why you're saying it. I just was curious why he announced it publicly. Because that was a huge break from norms, and both of those announcements damaged Hillary's campaign.
And let's look at the line that you stopped reading at the IG report there at the bottom page of 14th. You read this part. The FBI's inaction had potentially far-reaching consequences. Next line, quote, Comey told the OIG that had he known about the laptop in the beginning of October and thought the email review could have been completed before the election, it may have affected his decision to notify Congress. Comey told the OIG, I don't know if it would have put us in a different place, but I have liked to have had the opportunity. Then it says, Comey's decision to notify Congress on October 28th. Following the briefing by the mid-year team on October 27, 2016, Comey authorized the mid-year team to seek a search warrant, telling the OIG it had volumes of emails and presence of BlackBerry emails on the laptop. As we described in Chapter 13, McCabe joined this meeting. The issue of notifying Congress about the Wiener laptop was first raised at the October 27th briefing. Over the course of the next 24 hours, numerous additional discussions occurred within the FBI. As we described in Chapter 10 of our report, the factors considered were Comey's belief that failure to disclose the existence of emails.
Wait, where did you just... Well, holy shit. Oh,
page 14.
Of the Wiener... No, page 15 now, right?
Yeah, so that was... I started on page 14, so now we're on page 15. Quote, first, Comey's belief that failure to disclose the existence of the emails would be considered an act of concealment. Well, isn't that what I said? That he was worried the American people would say, he said the investigation was closed, and then they reopened it, and that he lied to us. He covered this up. Are you willing to admit you're wrong?
The American public? Rob, I don't even know what the fuck we're talking about right now. Hold on. Is this belief that failure to disclose the existence must be an act of concealment to the American public or to Congress or what?
Let me read this slowly again, right? The issue of...
Wait. You don't have to reread it. I can read.
Well, you're not doing a great job then. Because it's answering your questions. I have read all this before. I just didn't know where it was in this document because I just searched them. So as you're talking, I literally go to the paragraph you stopped, and it's answering the questions almost verbatim in the way that I answered them to you, with you saying there's no proof. It's just my conjecture. So can I read the reasons that James Comey announced this? Isn't that what you're waiting for? Let's read them. 1, his belief that failure to disclose the existence of the emails would be considered an act of concealment. 2, the belief that Comey had an obligation to update Congress because discovery was potentially significant and made his prior testimony the investigation was closed no longer true. 3, you ready for this one? An implicit assumption that Hillary would be elected president. Which is exactly what I said. He was worried that she would be elected president, and this would be seen as him concealing it, so he was forced to announce, hurry up and close the investigation, which is exactly what I told you.
Wait, you told me that a whistleblower had pressured him to fear that the information would leak. Yeah, I heard you. Yeah.
So the reason that they reopened it was the whistleblower. The reason that he went public, he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win.
That is not the reason. That's like one of 10 reasons listed here.
Okay, you want to go through the rest? They're all in conjunction with what I said there.
Concern that failing to disclose resulted in an accusation the FBI had engineered a cover-up to help get Clinton elected. Concerns about protecting the reputation of the FBI. Concerns about the perceived illegitimacy of a Clinton presidency that would follow from a failure to disclose to discover the emails if they proved to be significant. Concerns about the electoral impact concerns about the electoral impact of any announcement, and the belief that the email review could not be completed before the election.
Right.
Why wouldn't any of these apply to the Trump thing?
What are you talking about?
Why wouldn't they use any of these reasons to announce the ongoing Trump investigation?
Well, the Trump investigation was leaked.
Like, for instance, like, wouldn't Comey's belief here that not announcing the Trump investigation would be a concealment? Or wouldn't Comey feel like, I guess, an implicit assumption that Clinton would be elected president? I don't understand this rationale, I guess.
Okay, first, let me just say, I'll answer your question, but that's a pivot, right? So I was correct, and I would appreciate acknowledgement that I was correct as to why it was reopened and why it was announced that it was reopened. I was correct. Almost all of those reasons.
My initial question had to do with the announcing of the initial closure, but sure, for the reopening, well, you were correct, yes. Although when I asked you, you just said he only felt the pressure to announce this because he announced the closing of the last one. But now that we've read this, now you're going back to, oh no, wait, actually, I did remember this.
No,
I'll give it to you. Sure.
No, I had said quite specifically that he thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win. That's what he said in his book, and that it would be an albatross around her neck, and it would be considered that the FBI covered up for Hillary to help her win. And almost every one of these reasons that they give, that it would damage the reputation of the FBI, that it would be accused that the FBI had a conspiracy to help Hillary, that he thought Hillary was going to win. Almost everything the IG report says is in total line with what I initially said. I read it before, but I forgot that where it was in the document. And as I briefly went down as you were talking, the document literally backs up.
I understand. Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
thank you. Now, why wouldn't they do this with Trump? Several reasons. One, because they were leaking to the press beforehand about the investigation of Trump. Harry Reid was telling the American public a week outside the election that was occurring. Second, they didn't think Trump was going to win. Right? Third, they were going after Trump, and probably because they were biased against Trump, knew that they would be bringing some form of criminal charges. Had they thought Trump was going to win, I think the calculus would change. I think they would have had more overt or covert leaks of the actual investigation into Trump because they thought that it possibly could have hurt his chances. But they thought that they had it all wrapped up. Comey thought Hillary was going to win. It was all cool. They were covering up for Hillary. They were making sure things weren't out there. They were closing everything up in a nice, neat bow. Hillary had a 99% chance to win. So they didn't need to publicly announce these things. The one criticism that could be made of James Comey is in his attempts to help Hillary Clinton and his belief that Hillary Clinton was going to win, he ballsily comes out and makes this announcement. And the announcement was improper. I agree.
Wait a second. At what part of this is he doing this announcement to help Hillary win?
Well, that's my interpretation of what's going on. It seems evident based on the evidence. But
wait, why would you add that when that's not listed in anything here at all?
Well, I'm adding that because that's my interpretation of it. Right? Let me fill out what I was going to say here. The part where, regardless of his motivations, James Comey was the most wrong. He should have never came out and said, we're not charging Hillary, but here's a bunch of shitty things she did. That's wrong. You should never do that. He did that, one, because we could prove he thought Hillary was going to win. And he didn't want any excuses. He didn't want to say, we're not going to say anything, we've just declined to bring charges, Hillary to win, and then all of a sudden, her to be in her first...
Didn't he explicitly state that the reason why he made an announcement the first time is because Loretta Lynch's meeting with Clinton seemed improper, and he felt like he had to go above and beyond to make...
Yes, and that goes in line with what I'm saying. What he didn't want was for Hillary to win, and then all of a sudden, all of these questions to arise. Wait a minute, they did find classified emails? Wait a minute, Loretta Lynch did meet with Bill Clinton? Wait a minute, Loretta Lynch said all this shit? This sounds like a cover-up, which would have seen as a delegitimization. He thought Hillary's going to win, so it didn't matter if he came out and said this because Hillary was still going to win. I think, and this is my opinion on it based on all the evidence we see, that Comey and the FBI wanted Hillary to win, as Chuck Schumer told us. And that's why all of these disparities with the Hillary investigation, barring that one issue, the announcing of things she did wrong, but then saying, but we're not going to charge her, which there's significant dispute as to whether any reasonable prosecutor would have charged her. That's a bullshit claim. But I actually have no problem charging her because I think it is the norm in Washington for people to mishandle classified information. And if you're going to charge Hillary, then you got to charge George Bush. Then you got to charge Obama. Then you got to charge Mike Pence. Then you got to charge Trump, right? You got to charge everyone.
Classified information isn't even a crime. It's intentionally mishandling it.
Well,
right?
But yes, but I digress. If I think that it was beyond dispute that she intentionally set up that server, knowing that there would be classified information. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. My point is that it seems evident to me, based on the discrepancies we see of how one investigation was handled with as light a touch as possible, and the other was as heavy a touch as possible, and Comey's admission that he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. That explains his actions. That the reason he came out and announced this wasn't to hurt Hillary Clinton, as Democrats are keen to say. Oh, James Comey cost her the election. If you say that they were biased against Trump, why did...
That's not what anybody says. Nobody says
that's
that.
Absolutely
nobody says that Comey did it intentionally to nuke Clinton. What they say is that Comey engaged in an egregious breach of norms that probably cost Hillary the election, which is both of those are true, and you've admitted.
But they go further than that, and let me be specific as to what they say. They say that in rebuttal to when someone like me talks about the corruption of the FBI. So when I point out a bunch of evidence that shows how corrupt the FBI was in going after Trump and Trump-connected people, and how easy they were going after Hillary and Hillary-connected people, one of the rebuttals that I always get is, but then how do you explain the fact that James Comey came out and said in the closing of the investigation of Hillary Clinton and the reopening of the investigation 3 days before the election? Well, I just gave you the evidence. He didn't do that because he was trying to harm Hillary Clinton. The evidence strongly suggests otherwise.
No, he was doing it because he was trying to buoy his reputation or the reputation of the FBI.
Right. And he thought Hillary was going to win. And he didn't want this to be seen as, a potential of the FBI.
He didn't think that his announcement would damage her so much that it would affect it. But he was still the priority here was always the reputation of the FBI.
Again, it's also, he talks about how he thought Hillary would win. So if you're talking about the reputation of the FBI...
Wait. But when he's saying here, I thought Hillary would win, the reason he's saying this is because, sure, this might damage her, but she's going to win anyway. That's the whole point.
Okay.
Of bringing that point up, right?
Okay, so if he's concerned, would you say the reputation of the FBI would also be in ensuring that the president and the person that was going to be in charge of the FBI had a good relationship with the people of the FBI? Could that be a potential for upholding the reputation of the FBI to the leader of the FBI, the next president?
Not necessarily.
But it could be, correct?
That he's trying to maintain the reputation of the... I don't think that his statement, it felt like this was more of the reputation of the FBI in the eye of the public, not any elected official. I don't know if anybody wants an FBI that's making these types of announcements, right? Wouldn't you say that's true, that nobody wants an FBI that makes announcements like this?
Well, I would hope not, but that's certainly not true. There are plenty of people that are partisans that would...
Do you think Donald Trump would want an FBI like this?
If it was going after his opponents, probably.
Really? Didn't Donald Trump literally say explicitly that he fired Comey because of the public announcement of the reopening of the investigation?
I don't know exactly what his public declaration was, but it's evident based on conversations he had with people that the reason he fired Comey was because in private, Comey was telling Trump he wasn't a target of the Russia investigation, but in public, he was refusing to say as much.
So he fired him because of obstruction of justice.
Well, that's one way of interpreting it, right? I think it's heinous. I mean, I guess he could have just deleted subpoenaed emails and left off the hook like Hillary's team. But nonetheless,
wait, how is that not how is that not literally obstruction of justice? If he's firing Comey because he's not giving him information about an investigation related to him. If he's saying privately you're not being investigated, but publicly won't say it, what justice is being obstructed? Because he's firing him for not giving him details of an investigation related to him.
No. That's not. He didn't say, I can't give you the details of who's being investigating. He's assuring Trump privately, you're not the target of this. You're not. And Comey's even admitted this. Comey said that when he talked to Trump, Trump said, hey, if there were bad actors in my camp working with Russians, by all means, get them. But can you just tell I'm getting eaten alive in the public. There's all these leaks coming out of your office. I'm being accused of being a Russian stooge. And Comey's
if that's a fine statement to make, then why wouldn't Trump just say that publicly? Comey wasn't telling me privately what he was saying publicly, so I fired him for it. Why would he use the Hillary thing?
I don't know. I don't give a shit. It's irrelevant. Why do you think he fired Comey?
For what I just said, probably because of the obstruction of justice. He wanted to try to fuck with the investigation as much as he could.
Why? The investigation thoroughly showed that he didn't have any illicit contacts with Russia.
I don't know if he knew that. We don't know if that's
you
true.
think Trump didn't know? So wait, you think that Trump thought, actually, I did collude with Russia?
I don't know if Trump would have known if any of the statements that he'd made publicly or any of the meetings that happened privately crossed any thresholds of legality. I don't know if Trump knows any of the legality on any of this.
The reason,
also, as you've said before, right, just because something was found doesn't mean that nothing was there. I don't know. That'd be my guess. Otherwise, why the fuck would he fire him? That seems weird as fuck.
He fired him because what happened was, you want to talk.
Okay, listen.
I'll tell you. Like,
it's 11:22. I'm already an hour and 20 minutes, and now we're jumping into the Comey firing and everything else. I don't
care. You did it.
Listen,
you're the one who brought it up.
I did. All right. Thank you. I love you, buddy.
All right. You want to head out then? That's what I thought. So let me make sure I'm out of his channel. I don't want to disrupt his channel any further. Leave. 1 second. Just let me figure out how to leave this. There's got to be a... There we go. Disconnect. All right. Yeah, I mean, rage quit. I don't know about that. He probably did have to leave. He probably does stop streaming around this time. But this is the problem, right? This is the problem. First off, he brought that shit up. I was more than willing to try my best to just focus on the idea of January 6th. And all. We didn't even talk about the shit I wanted to talk about, right? It is not my area of expertise nor my primary concern to talk about whether or not the electoral challenges of Donald Trump constitutes a crime. I don't think they do, and I think that he's clearly being selectively targeted. However, I do agree. I understand why Democrats would be pissed if Mike Pence would have went through with it. I don't think that that would have just led to Trump being declared the winner. I think that it would have forced the Supreme Court's hand, and then they would have made a ruling whether or not they saw evidence of election interference. And if Trump refused to vacate at that point, I think it would have been very serious. And look, you see people like Camus in here on my chat, no doubt from Destiny Stream, saying, Rob, you're delusional. I mean, anyone with any objective nature whatsoever could see in the entire last hour and a half of that debate, Destiny got his ass handed to him. Like, absolutely got his ass handed to him. Even to the point where he's forced to admit, yeah, you're right. And Camus says, Rob, you're delusional. I mean, I don't know what to say. I literally forced him to say, will you say I was right about that? Yeah, okay, you're right. And still people are like, you're delusional. And let me just say this, furthermore, to Camus or any other Destiny chatter that might be out there. Like, you are aware that Destiny knows that you're full of shit, right? The reason that Destiny wants to talk to me or doesn't want to specifically debate me on certain topics is because he actually respects me as being able to debate. So you just come off as a fucking fool when you hear, which... Even when Destiny has to admit, yeah, you're right about that. And then, by the way, Aftershocks here, other people have been. The accusation that Destiny has used me in the past. By the way, I thank Destiny for his time. I wish him no ill will or anything like that. But I will talk shit. He's free to talk shit and say he won the argument or two. I don't care about that. The accusation that he makes is he'll nail me on a point, and then I'll, without conceding it, pivot onto something else. Isn't that exactly what Destiny did the whole time? That's exactly what he did. He wanted, and again, he's the one who brought up, why did Comey announce the reopening? I said why. I was definitively, after an hour of going through the document, was definitively proven true. And what's he immediately do? But then why didn't they do that with Trump? Exactly what he does. And that's what I'm accused of. Almost every time we go into one of these reports, I would say with 98% accuracy, I'm fucking right with what it says. Almost go back and watch the last 5 or 6 debates I've had with Destiny. Whether it be going through the 302 of Mike Flynn, I was exactly right what it said. Whether it be going through the IG report, this is the second or third time we went through it. The reason this gets brought up over and over again is there are certain things that Democrats or defenders of the FBI will do. There are certain key moments that they'll keep bringing up. One of those key moments that they see that sounds good narratively to their audience is, well, if the FBI was so biased against Trump, why did they reopen the investigation into Hillary? Well, I've told Destiny 3 or 4 times, every time we go to the IG report, every time the IG report says, 6 months from now, I'll debate Destiny, and him or someone in the chat will say this again, and when I say, let's go back to the IG report, they'll act like we haven't gone through it 2 or 3 times already. Every time, that's what occurs. I don't know what to say. He's doing better on the idea of whether, Trump intended. Look, the fact is this, I don't know why it's hard. You could hate Donald Trump and come to this conclusion. You could think Donald Trump's stupid, he's arrogant. The guy fucking believes the election was stolen from him. He does. And so if you're making it a key point, what makes this a coup or an insurrection and other elector changes what wasn't the same is that Trump knows he's full of shit. He does not. He does not know he's full of shit. they'll tactically run away. Maybe. But I ask you this. Do you see any other people, right-wingers, that every time they debate Destiny end up on the better hand of it? Like that. And what's crazy is when we talk about specific, like he's like, name me even one, even on the like, name me even one thing Trump could have believed, hypothetically that he could have believed. It's all been debunked about the election not going his way. So I cite the Pennsylvania court in 2022. Granted, that court decision was overruled, but that wasn't a settled issue until 2022. So it's quite clear, Trump, and I know Trump could have thought that. You want to know how I know? Because I was literally talking to one of the best journalists in the state on a weekly basis named Todd Bartley, who I had a radio show with, that was talking about that election challenge. That election challenge was brought by a friend of mine, Bradford County Commissioner Doug McClinko, who was the one who initially brought the court case saying that mail-in voting was against the Pennsylvania Constitution. So I absolutely knew about it. And I know that Trump's team had talked to Doug McClinko and knew that he was bringing that suit. I forget who the other people were that attached to that suit. I had Doug McClinko on my show talking about that election suit. For an hour, he came on and joined me on the show. Now, we didn't get to where I was, and I think that ultimately I had to take the reins a little. I have no problem playing second fiddle, or that's not the way to put it. I have no problem leading someone else control the direction of a discussion. That's fine. Destiny invited me on his show to talk about things. I mentioned before we went live, I have no idea exactly what he wants to talk about, so I don't mind letting him steer the direction. I legitimately thought when he said January 6th, that would either be one, talking about the Colorado case, which he quickly is like, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, that's number one. Or number two, talking about the day of January 6th and whether the fighting and all that shit was an insurrection. Instead, when he said January 6th, what he really wanted to talk about was not January 6th. It was the electors, the alternate electors. Well, that was an ongoing process that sort of, I guess, culminated on January 6th. But nonetheless, I had no problem with that. But it's clear that he controlled the direction of the debate and moved on every time that. So he's like, you can't, name me one potential thing. So I name him Pennsylvania. He has to concede I was right about Pennsylvania. Yeah, but that's just one state. Okay, let's go to Georgia. Let's go to the chain of custody issues in Georgia, which I still don't believe have been resolved. But the best he could say is there was a claim of its resolution in 2021. Okay, that's after January 6th. So again, that's two states then that Trump could have thought, wait a minute, I think I have legal recourse that I could win these states. But he's like, yeah, but 80%, 90%, all the other stuff was bullshit. Well, was it bullshit? And these are just big claims that everyone in his circle said it was all bullshit. That's not true. Yeah, I always get owned by Pisco. How's that? What's the last debate me and Pisco did? Jabal Bowman. How'd that one go, Dwayne Thomas? Remember that? When Pisco said it was more likely that Jabal Bowman pulled a fire alarm to unlock the... How'd that go? How'd that go for Pisco? How'd those debates about Russiagate go? About the FISA warrants being illegal? How'd that shit go for Pisco? Not so good. The Burisma debate, he thinks he's on to something. He hasn't said shit. It's just... people that will overlook the corruption like yourself, I'm guessing Dwayne Thomas, will say, no, Pisco's right. It was all resolved. Nothing to see here. I shouldn't even say this. I should keep this secret. Pisco did a panel tonight, didn't he? Someone reached out to me from that panel and asked me what I would say about the Colorado case. I hope they use some of my arguments. Right, they asked a theory. Right, floating a theory doesn't make it an insurrection. It's a legal theory. Didn't Pisco admit the Burisma debate? He killed you, LMAO, you're coping. How did he kill me? What did he kill me? What were his claims? You tell me. Dwayne, would you like to call in real quick? We could talk about it. You could tell how he killed me. Right? Would you like to? Or you could just, we can go one by one. You could just click yes or no. Your choice, Dwayne. He killed me on the Burisma debate. Now, what he did was said there were a bunch of bullshit that has nothing to do with the central claims made. Like, he said things like this. Here's what he admitted to. Yes, Biden was the one who came up with the quid pro quo. And yes, that quid pro quo did ultimately force the firing of the prosecutor. And yes, the new prosecutor absolutely did benefit Burisma, Hunter Biden's lawyer. It absolutely did. But there's a bunch of reasons why that doesn't matter. That alone, no matter what the other reasons are reason enough to show that Pisco's lost the debate, that there should have been an immediate investigation into Joe Biden, forcing Joe Biden to testify as to why he took these actions. He said things like this, but it was okay for Biden to do that because everyone else wanted Shokin fired. Who? Show me any contemporaneous messages showing that people at the FBI or the State Department wanted Shokin fired. Show me any. The first we see is in November when it's Biden's team suggesting wanting Shokin firing. Even Biden's own assistant in an interview admits the one who came up with the quid pro quo was Joe Biden. But we're supposed to believe because a couple people at the State Department testified afterwards, no, trust us, we don't have any documents to prove it, but we were suggesting firing Shokin well before Biden did. Oh, that's Pisco demolishing me in the debate. Even if those documents did exist, it proves nothing. For example, everyone wanted James Comey fired, yet when Comey was fired by Donald Trump, it wasn't a defense to say, wait a minute, everyone wanted Comey fired, therefore no need to investigate Trump. Au contraire, they said even if it's true that everyone else wanted Comey fired, it could be that Trump wanted him fired for personal reasons. Therefore, we need to investigate. Why wouldn't the same be true of Biden? I didn't block anyone. If someone blocked him, unblock him. I did not. I did not block anyone. No, please unblock him. I'm not even, all I got up is my Discord or my OBS. What are my thoughts with 2024? I think Democrats will win. I think Trump's got an 85 to 90% chance of being the nominee for Republicans. I think the amount of dirt and crazy shit that will come out going into the 2024 election will be insane. I think Democrats will win. Oh, you only blocked me for 300 seconds. Okay, well. Now Pisco's saying later, oh, it's all debunked, right? Because actually, in 2016, in January 2016, separately, the FBI opened up a bribery investigation into Zlochevsky. Cool, what'd they find? We know Zlochevsky was bribing people, so what'd they find? Oh, nothing ever? And then when the Pittsburgh office in 2020 asked to cooperate, and the IRS asked to cooperate with the Delaware office that was leading that investigation, did they provide any of the evidence? No, they didn't. And none of the financial documents into Joe Biden was ever looked at or allowed to be looked at. And Pisco's even admitted that he sincerely doubts that a grand jury was ever impaneled to get access to Biden's financial documents. So great, there was a bribery investigation into Zlochevsky. And what that allows is for cover for people to say, wait a minute, if Joe Biden and his team at the State Department forced the firing of Shokin, which they have to admit was of benefit to Burisma, it allowed Burisma to come back in Ukraine, allowed them to start their business back up, allowed them to get good PR in Ukraine to make them working members of Ukrainian society again and continue business as usual, something they were unable to do while Viktor Shokin was in office. They say, but none of that matters because an investigation into the United States into Zlochevsky opened, which never did anything. So, a horse of peace, that's proof. That's bullshit. Am I okay with them winning? Well, of course I'm not. What are my thoughts on that? Really bad. It'll get bad. My thoughts on that is, if you're religious, believe in God. If you're not religious, there's more important things in your life. Your family, stuff like that. I've tried to sound the whistle. I talked about this stuff and the corruption. I've been talking about it publicly on blog posts and stuff like that since probably 2011. I've had a channel since 2017, 18 where I've talked about these sorts of things. I go to Republican meetings. I volunteer for Trump's campaign. I work routinely with not only my local Republicans, but also people in the state level of the Republican Party. People didn't want to listen to me. So here we are. My conscience is clear. Well, just kidding. That was something that I was going to get to. The other thing is why Trump would be hesitant to believe people. Again, there is no explanation proffered by anyone, including the IG makes a point to say this. And Aftershock and other people that were watching my channel just last week on the 20th, I believe it was, 8 days ago, I stayed up until the wee hours of the morning watching the IG report, or IG Horowitz testify for 6 hours in front of Congress. And it's clear that he's saying, we are not given an explanation for why all this bad shit happened in the investigation into Trump, particularly with the file. He's like, yeah, there was reason to open the investigation, but the steps they took violated procedures over and over and over, and we haven't been given a satisfactory explanation. And it could be incompetence, or it could be some form of bias, or anywhere in between, right? Thank you, Riolis of Historia. I really appreciate it. I have no problem with a Destiny supporter saying, hey, Rob, I thought you did okay, but you're wrong about this, this, and this. Destiny's more right. That's fine. I don't mind that. But it is a bit pet peeve of mine when someone's like, you're an idiot. You're smooth brain. You're delusional. It's like, clearly not. Like, I wouldn't say that about Destiny. I'm not going to be like, Destiny's the dumbest person ever. Like, I'm not going to say that. I think Destiny, I think there are a lot of negatives with Trump, and I think one of the things I could say that many other people that voted for Trump in the past can't say is I criticized him in real time, much to the detriment of my reputation in the Trump community. I'm also not voting for Trump in the primary, though I will vote for him in the general. I'm going to vote for Vivek because I'm a single-issue voter on corruption, and I think his plan is the best to deal with corruption. And then after that, I would vote for DeSantis if Vivek's no longer in it by the time it gets to Pennsylvania. So Trump would be my third option, but I would support any of those three in the general election over Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom. But none of those three will be perfect, and it might not even be good. We might already be down a path that's unrecoverable. Tom Bombadil, right. I mean, for God's sakes, if Tom Bombadil's weighing in on Debate Bros shit. But I guess the last thing I'll say is, so given that FBI, like, why do you think Trump would be skeptical of everything? Now, I think it's in Trump's nature that he's just like, I think he has an inflated sense of self where he thinks he's like Trump probably looked out at his crowd, was like, it was the biggest crowd ever. He probably believed it. And it's like, no, dude, like, it's just not. It's not. No one respects women more than me. He probably fucking believes it. Probably not true, right? But his distrust of these institutions is absolutely warranted given what occurred against him. In other words, the swamp is even bigger than he thought. I think the election was stolen from Donald Trump, though not necessarily in the same way. I think the election was stolen in the form that we had collusion amongst almost every major institution in this country to put their thumb on the scale. And when you're talking about elections decided on razor-thin margins of 50 to 60,000 people in a couple swing states, then little things like changing election laws in ways that I think are illegitimate, or censoring certain viewpoints online, or having 52 FBI agents say that this is Russian disinformation, and labeling Trump as a Russian collusionist for 4 years and all that shit, that's enough to tip the scale. The algorithm itself, as Professor Robert Epstein testified, was able to sway potentially as many as 16 million people. So to me, that's all tantamount to stealing the election. And I said this, people could fucking criticize me all, you call me a conspiracy theory all you want. I said this the day after the election. I said, first off, I have literally debunked more misinformation about the election being stolen claims than almost any lefty. I tried to go through them with a fine-tooth comb and see what I thought was legitimate and illegitimate, right? I made fun of ones like, oh, actually, the Navy SEALs are fighting mercenaries for Dominion voting machines in Germany. It's a fucking joke. It was a joke. So dumb. Right? It's absolutely dumb. But what I said from the get-go was, I have no problem people wanting to talk about any election malfeasance, voting machines, tallying votes, whatever. Do you? I don't really do that stuff. I didn't talk about much of that stuff. I said, I'm going to operate under the assumption that that didn't occur. What does that say about us? What does it say if a doddering old man with dementia can be drug across the finishing line by a combination of big tech, corporate America, our intel agencies, our mainstream media? Thank you so much, Cokes. What does that mean for the future? What's that mean for elections going forward? Because the algorithm's only ever going to get more powerful. Thank you, Cokes, for the subscription. AI is only going to get more powerful. The ability to influence people is going to become more and more powerful. What's that mean for future elections? Hell, it may be inevitable whatever this election is. Let's say we get things right for the next 20 years. Inevitably, we might be down a path that's unrecoverable in the traditional sense of the way. That we just have the illusion of choice. It could be the case. I don't know. I'm still going to fight for what I see as corruption and against it now. I'm going to, but Any debate plan in the near future? I would love to get on Tim Pool's show. So if people want to send any, I'll try. I tried to record all of this in addition to live streaming it. So I'll try to upload it to YouTube. So one of the things y'all could help me with is if you want to reach out to Tim Pool, who's talked about me several times on the show. Yeah, I think the 2020 Time magazine article is absolutely damning because what it shows is that there was a ground game to do things like influence changing of election systems, have social media companies censor information they thought was hostile to Joe Biden, promote evidence they thought was hostile to Donald Trump. All of this talks about a concerted effort amongst groups. It may not even be illegal if you're not talking about government agencies. It may not be illegal, but these institutions have so much power to influence so many people like Google, in the algorithm, or Facebook, or Twitter. Thank you, that man. So last thing I'll say is this, it becomes incredibly frustrating. And I've talked about this with Pisco, Destiny, and other people over and over again. Notice how they default to, but the FBI didn't say anything was wrong. So for example, when you read the IG report there, you have to understand, I feel the IG is being very professional, unlike James Comey. See, the IG knows he can't just come out and be like, dude, it's my fucking feeling that these people were biased. And that's why they did. He can't say that. He can only say, here's what we found evidence for. Now we're kicking it off to another group to investigate. That's all he could do. So he's very careful not only in his report, but in his testimony. You could see. And you could see when Republicans are asking him, it's like, you're not saying that you didn't find evidence of bias. Or he's like, no, I'm not saying that. And you're not saying that you find that bias didn't affect these decisions. No. In fact, you're saying these are very troubling decisions. Yes, I am. And you're saying they need answers. Yes. And you're saying you haven't seen satisfactory answers. Yes. And you think it's very important for the public to trust the FBI, and if we don't get answers to these questions, it'll damage their trust in these institutions. Yes, he's saying all of that. And then the Democrats come on, and they basically repeat the lines that you hear people like Destiny and Pisco. But you didn't find any evidence that said that the reason they did this was bias. No, we did not. And Russia did interfere, right? Yeah. And there was reason to start the investigation. Yeah. Well, it's because the bar is so low for starting an investigation, right? And the problem is they look at every action that the FBI took in a vacuum. And still many times they found wrongdoing in both the Russia investigation and the Hillary investigation. But the problem is if you take a step back and don't look at them all in a vacuum, the picture becomes quite clear. Hillary's team, they're giving everyone immunity. They have them for obvious crimes. They deleted subpoenaed evidence. They knew that only 2 or 3 people could have did that. Still, they offered immunity. They allowed devices to be smashed. They allowed things that are against procedure, like they interviewed Hillary Clinton with Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin with her. Thank you, Conservative Carnage. I really appreciate it, man. I hope everything's going good for you, man. I'll keep you in thoughts and prayers, man. Glad you're here. Hope you enjoyed it. Well, it's not, there's no problem with asking for, one of the things, I know Destiny wanted to talk to me because he's going to talk to Alex Jones. I think Alex Jones' weakness, and even Alex will admit this, is Alex is way better read than me. I mean, he spent his life doing this. I do this as a hobby. I focus on a couple of key issues and I try to get in depth on them, right? Other than that, it's a hobby. Alex Jones is spending hours upon hours a day reading classified information and whistleblowers that are coming to him and all this crazy shit. And he has this near photographic memory where he remembers all this shit that he's reading from 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? But once you're so far down that rabbit hole, everything's a conspiracy. So there's a school shooting. Had to be MK Ultra. Had to be the CIA put someone. No, sometimes people just go nuts and kill children. There's a hurricane. Had to be the HARP fucking with the ionosphere. No, sometimes there's just hurricanes. Right? I'm glad you're here, Conservative Carnage. So Adam McGill, I'll answer that question as my last comment, and then I got to get out. I'd like to be down here by midnight. So it becomes clear that what happens is when there's all this evident, when you look at the picture as a whole, it's clear the picture that's painted. And the problem is when the ultimate arbiter is the investigator, who watches the watchman, right? So when the investigation finally gets kicked back to the FBI and they're like, yeah, we didn't do anything wrong, or there was a couple minor things, but we handled it. It's bullshit. And that pattern continues to this day. We could talk about the recent investigation into Hunter Biden, leaving the statute of limitations run out in the Burisma thing, trying to offer a sweetheart deal that whistleblowers had to speak up about, that then a judge had to speak up and say, I've never seen a sweetheart deal like this before, a plea deal like this before. Then 6 months later going, okay, we just happen to find all these tax crimes, but it still doesn't include FARA violations. I mean, it's nonsensical. And again, it's stupid. And if you're new to my channel, go back and watch me talk to Pisco about the Jabal Bowman situation. The reason I'm so rude to Pisco in there is because it's one of the most disappointing. It's actually one of the biggest L's I ever took in an ironic way. It's a huge L, not because I lost that debate, because I objectively crush him in that debate. But it's an L because all of the people that told me, dude, you're fucking wasting your time talking to people like him because he's so biased, he's so partisan that he's bad faith. There's literally no evidence that you'll ever be able to present to him that would change his mind on the significant points that you're making about corruption and double standards of the FBI. There's nothing you could do. And when you watch him defend Jabal Bowman pulling that fire alarm, that's why I'm so incredulous to him, because I wasted literally hours of my fucking life. Someone that I'd said over and over to the chagrin of my audience that I actually liked talking to and liked as a person, even if we had significant disagreements. And I still don't hate him as a person, don't get it wrong. But what I realized was the people that kept telling me, dude, you're pissing your time away, were right. Now, I didn't piss my time away in that I had fun and it encouraged me to research more, but I pissed my time away thinking that I had a partner in the debate that was good faith. I did not. So if he can't, and now the evidence has came out, we see the video, it's clear that Jabal Bowman didn't even try to get out the door. He can't help himself. He can't say, yeah, I take that L, I was fucking wrong. Yep, he can't do it. Well, wait a minute, there's more questions to ask, blah, 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 blah. So what do you think the chances are his opinion on a more complicated issue like the Colorado case aren't incredibly biased? Doesn't mean that he would be wrong about anything. It's just that if he was wrong, it wouldn't matter. So that's what's frustrating to me. And Destiny, I didn't have I don't want to say a close relationship, but I didn't interact with Destiny near as much as I did Pisco. So that's why I'm more pissed off with Pisco, because it's like, what the fuck? What a waste. What a fucking waste. Someone that you respect, even if you disagree with, you respect, and then you're like, oh, they're not worthy of any of that respect at all. You know, I never really had that with Destiny. I'm not saying I disrespect Destiny. It's just, I always knew he was partisan. You know, and I think he actually makes somewhat of an effort more than Pisco, though I'll probably be proven wrong on that at some point as well. But over and over and over and over and over again, I could show this stuff, and it keeps coming back to it. It's not going to happen. There's more hope that Destiny would wake up someday and be like, wow, the FBI really has a huge double standard. More hope than Pisco at this point, I would say, but still very little. All right, last question. Adam McGill says, Rob, pretty new to your channel. Any advice on getting good at debates other than practice? Well, it depends on what type of debate you're doing, right? And it depends on what you want to get out. I assume by debate you mean this style of debate, not like collegiate debate or something like that. So I'll only reference this style of debate, right? You have to ask yourself what your goal is. Is your goal to win, or is your goal to get to some sort of truth or to learn more? Because that affects how you become better at either of those. My advice and the way I debate is, I clearly want to look good. I'm a competitive asshole, right? But that's not my primary goal. My primary goal is that I want to get to the bottom of shit. That's why I intentionally seek out people that I know will challenge me. It does me no good to do the sort of thing where I'm just like, I bring them some Joe Schmo that's never talked and I beat them around. I do that all the time. My channel loves when I do that. I'll stay up until 3, 4 in the morning with some random person who has no channel. It's just a person. And I'll walk them through one stupid opinion they have after another and just knock it down. But that's not when I have the most fun. I have the most fun when I'm debating someone that I know is really good at what they're talking about. So someone I think that was fun to debate economically was Econoboy. Someone that I like to debate legal matters on is Pisco. Someone that I like to debate in general is someone like Destiny. These are people that are considered very good debaters for their side in these particular subjects. That's who I want to debate. And that's what makes me better, is because I'm constantly trying to go up against people that challenge me, and so that I have a more nuanced and persuasive way to talk about these certain issues, right? I wouldn't keep the memory retention of 90% of the shit I talk about on this stream if it wasn't for being in debates. I remember it because I connect. I remember the last time I talked to Destiny, I went and I read the IG report and found this out. Right? That's how my memory works. So I think to be good at debate, that's online. Like, you have to think, what's your agenda first? The next thing is you have to understand that there's a 98% chance that you're not going to convince the person you're debating, but that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be the people that are watching. A huge portion of that are obviously going to like the person that they're watching. So if you're a Destiny fan, you're going to cheer for Destiny no matter what. If you're a me fan, you're going to cheer for me. But there are people that are persuadable, and that's who you should be reaching. And then incrementally that could get larger. Another thing is to be yourself. Stay within yourself. Don't pretend to know shit you don't. Admit when you're not an expert on something. Admit if you end up being wrong about something. That lends so much more credibility to you. If you do like Pisco and you're still standing by I'm not convinced that it wasn't more likely that he pulled the alarm for a delay than to exit the door, even after the video comes out, you lose all credibility with anyone who's remotely objective, right? So be authentic to yourself. And the last thing is, understand that you don't need to win every micro argument to win an overarching point. And one of the things that people that aren't concerned about the truth but are concerned about winning a debate are very good at doing is they could mire you down in little specific details that don't really speak to the greater story that's being told, right? So for example, you could focus on when you heard the parts where I'm talking to Destiny about look, this is what the whistleblower outside the FBI did. But wait a minute, Andrew McCabe, what position is he at the FBI? And was he the second? And Bill Priestley, and they didn't say it was a big deal, right? And so then you have to go through each of these one by one by one. And if you could do that, that's great. But what's more important is to be well, even if that's true, does that really affect the overall truth of what happened? Yeah, bass guitar, I would love to do that. I don't claim to be an expert on that shit. And I hope I made that clear to Destiny and his audience. You won't hear me. But what I do think from the bottom of my heart is that absolutely Donald Trump believed the election was stolen. Yeah, no problem, Adam McGill. I hope that helps. And even more importantly, because part of this style of debate is being a streamer or putting your image out there. The number one advice I could give to streamers, and I say this as someone who has 60 people watching me right now, this is not a fucking career for me. I am not a big time streamer. I could tell you a ton of shit I do wrong. But to me, if you want to have any amount of success, and I think I could say this about Destiny, and I think I could say this about most of the big streamers, is you have to have an amount of authenticity. The number one thing that you're selling to an audience is that you're you. If you try to be a Destiny clone or a robnoerr clone, it ultimately will be hollow because other people will do it and people will do it better than you, right? So just be yourself. And there's probably an audience out there, if you're saying interesting things, that'll like you for you. And you're never going to find someone that 100% agrees with everything you say. There are large portions of my audience that absolutely despise many of my positions. Like gay marriage. I support gay marriage. I have friends routinely that are streamers that I talk to all the time that can't stand my position on gay marriage. People at the Crucible, it is what it is. But I think the reason that they would still consider me friends or consider me worthwhile talking to is that I'm authentic. I'm not going to placate them and be like, yeah. Andrew would be one. I think Andrew likes me. I have no reason to disbelieve that. So anyways, I hope that answers your question. Anyways, I'll be trying to upload the full video of this. I know that I had connection issues for a second. I don't know why. But yeah, give it a shout out. If you want to clip this, that would be a big help to me. If you find parts in this debate you thought were very good and you'd like to clip them and put them on X or Twitter, tag me, tag Tim Pool or people like that. I know Aftershock always does that. Surian Bot always does that really great. So thank you to you all. Thank you to anyone I believe, or anyone that donated to me. I'm so sorry when I'm in the middle of a discussion or a debate. Oftentimes it's difficult for me to see. Particularly, the only one that actually pops up on my screen is Twitch, and I'm not streaming to Twitch right now. So if you donated money in YouTube, I probably missed it. But thank you, it means a lot. See, Louis Joyston agrees. I'd be 70% cooler if I dropped the gay marriage shit. Drop the gay shit, see? It is what it is, Stream is 2 different videos, but I did record it, and hopefully I'll upload it as one video then. Hopefully I'll have time to do that maybe tomorrow. So, All right, I'm going to be heading out. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks to Destiny for having me on. Again, this was just impromptu. I think he wanted to talk to me before he goes and talks to someone like Alex Jones. I don't know if the commentary I had is similar to what he'll get with Alex Jones. I wish him well. My advice to him, if he wants to win a debate against Alex Jones, is to get him off on a red herring like interdimensional vampires or some shit. It's probably your best chance, because if you start talking about the specifics, I'll bet Alex Jones has way more specifics on specific election allegations in places like Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Pennsylvania than I do, because it's not really my focus. But for the sake of this, it's just, again, the impetus is on Destiny. It's crucial to his belief that he has to think Trump intentionally knows he lost, and I don't believe that. And I think that even if you hate Trump, there's good reason to believe, like, the dude fucking would seriously believe that it was stolen from him. So thank you so much. Next time you'll hear from me is probably Monday evening. So I look forward to hearing from you all Monday evening. You guys are the best. As always, have a good one.